5, 4, 3. End of year awards! Apparently we're live, and I've noticed for the past little while, whenever it says going live, we've already been live for a little bit, so you get like 5 seconds of me sipping my tea, which hopefully doesn't happen. But anyway, welcome to the Wrestling Headlines 2020 End of Year Awards, live on the 9th of January 2021, which is a day earlier than last year. So congratulations to Sam for counting it all up in record time this year. Obviously, I've just casually introduced him. I'm joined once again to do the Wrestling Headlines End of Year Awards with SirSam. Welcome back, Sam.
Hello, Imp. It's great to see you, and great to see you in living colour as well. Definitely not used to being on camera and seeing you on camera, but it's nice.
Yeah, so I've made a little thing just for this one, because last year we pre-recorded this and it went out and nobody watched it. It was a lot of effort, a lot of time. It was like, yeah, the actual column version did well, it did fine. Obviously, end of year awards, columns and articles always do well on wrestling headlines. But the actual video, yeah, like 30 people. So I was like, right, this time, to do a proper live stream, put some effort into it. It's just, yeah. Oh, yeah. Last year...
I made a background today.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is like my task and my chore today.
I've got my Wrestling Headlines t-shirt on. The logo matches the logo that's in the middle of the screen. It's great. I mean, the only way I made that...
Where do you get those from? I don't even know we had them.
Hit up Calvin. He he must be relatively happy with what I'm doing, because he sent me 4 t-shirts to wear for this. So yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's because I live in Australia and posting anything to Australia costs an arm and a leg.
Shipping to Australia. He's like, no.
It's ridiculous.
No. To be fair, it took like a month.
It's fortunate. I have 20 levels of this thing behind me if shipping was at all costly. A good cost.
But yeah, so obviously, Sam's got a professional background. I've got the professional t-shirt to make up for the washing machine and washing behind me. So, wrestling headlines ahead. But we're faff. We've got a lot of awards to get through. As you can see above me, I can't point in the wrong direction. As you can see above me, the WWE Wrestler of the Year will be our first award. But first off, we've got a load of things to plug, and by we, I mean Sam.
Yeah, so first thing I wanted to plug was, of course, this is brought to you by Wrestling Headlines. That's the website that we write for, podcasts for, we have videos for, and we actually rely on contributors from in the wrestling community. Me and him, 5 years ago, didn't have this. We didn't write, we didn't podcast or anything, but we got involved in Wrestling Headlines through the forum. And at the moment, I'm hosting a writing tournament in the forum. It's called Last Man Standing, and with that, there'll be 5 rounds. Each round, there'll be eliminations of writers, and it's a great way if you want to get started writing, if you've ever thought about writing about wrestling, it's a great way to get in there. You'll have topics provided for you. You'll get feedback, so you won't be writing for no one, and it's really fun when there's a tournament. We've got some veterans who've signed up for it. We've got one young up-and-comer who I've never met before who's signed up for it, and I'm going to be running it. So, who to come to if there's any issues. And as Imp will attest, it's great writing for Wrestling Headlines. It's great writing in the columns forum. And you learn a lot about yourself, about wrestling. And you enjoy wrestling more when you write about it, I reckon, or when you analyse it, critique it. So if you have ever thought about writing about wrestling, go to the Wrestling Headlines column forum, sign up for Last Man Standing. We just announced the first topic. It's favourite match. So you can do whatever you write. Like, there's one person who's written something in there and it's like a fictional retelling of their favourite match. Really interesting. And there's like about 2 or 3 weeks. The first round finishes on the Sunday the 24th of January, so you've still got a good 2 weeks to write your column, if you're keen. So that's the main thing I wanted to plug, and that's what's bringing us the end-of-year awards. I'm saying it's brought to you by the Last Man Standing tournament we're doing.
Brought to you by Last Man Standing with Tim Allen. The amazing. But yeah, I can attest. I've myself and SirSam both started off in the columns forum. Before I went there, I'd never written anything, any column thing before in my life. Obviously, I'd written dissertations and things for schools and universities, whatever. But yeah, it's the first time I ever wrote columns, and specifically the tournaments always pushed me as a writer to come up with random stuff. And you never know what you're going to write. And of course, for me, I always used it to push myself and come up with random ideas and things. Like one time I did a nursery rhyme for Roman Reigns, the Golden Goose. As in, you never know what you're gonna write, and I really like that. And the quality is incredible for all of these tournaments. I always felt like I had to bring it, otherwise I would never advance to the next one. Incredible quality every single time, which it's great to see that always happening. Yes, also,
it's especially humbling when you're a main page writer. You know, you're writing every week, and then you go into these tournaments, and someone who's written like 2 columns just decimates you.
Yeah, it's happened. Yeah, I want to say hello to Josh Robinson as well in the chat. How is the new hair? I've not seen it. Right. Anyway, so just some random sidebars. I saw he was there. The Wrestling Headlines Award. Have we got something else to plug? It happens every time. We organise this beforehand. I don't think I do. I don't think I've got anything else. Follow me on
just
Twitch.
plugging the column for the end of year awards, I'd say, would be the main thing. So that'll be posted on WrestlingHeadlines.com next, probably tomorrow sometime. I've got all the results together. I'm just writing the analysis and things for the tournament and for the results of this. I've got too many things going on in my head apparently. And I'm just writing the analysis of it at the moment, so that'll probably go up sometime tomorrow on WrestlingHeadlines.com. You'll see all of the results, and we'll announce them today. But this will have all of the figures, who's got first, second, third, all of that. You can dig in and comment on. And look, as we've said, if you're keen, hit us up on Twitter with any questions, or in the chat on YouTube as we go through. If you've got any comments or have any questions,
and of course, me putting 2 little circles on either side of the Wrestling Headlines End of Year Awards kind of image I've got between us was totally on purpose and not an accident when I completely erased incorrectly. As in the I've forgotten what it's called, where you do this as a selection tool. That was it. Yeah, I totally didn't do the selection tool and accidentally go into it. It's like, well, I'm going to have to move it on the other side. Oh, it looks like a ticket. That's convenient. So anyway, it worked out all right. And Josh Robinson's
I've got
new
zero
host.
idea what you're talking about, Imp, but...
Anyway, so let's get on with the wars. Enough tangents where, again, this happens every time with my shows. You have to stick on topic. That's why I script myself. Otherwise I go absolutely just crazy everywhere. So, the End of Year Awards, we're going to start off, scarily enough, with the WWE Wrestler of the Year. And, again, scarily enough, you can see the results in front of you for this entire few minutes. And I guess, so Sam, have you got any, initial comments on how this has panned out?
Yeah, so I guess just before I do, when I created these awards and when I've run them, I like to separate out the different promotions. I've got WWE, AEW, and Global/Indie. I'd like to do something different with Global/Indie, but we've got to draw a line somewhere, and we can't watch everything, and we can't have categories for everything. But we've got the 2 big promotions separate, because honestly, I think they are different, and the wrestlers in them are expected to have different things. They're expected to have different matches. So I think it's fair to separate them. And it gives a chance for each fan base to value within that company, as opposed to making it a war about WWE versus AEW or anything. We've got that later. There's the question of the best promotion later. But within the promotions, we want to celebrate what's best at the end of the year, and that's why I love doing this, coming on and doing this podcast with you, Imp. So first in, we had Drew McIntyre. He got 39% even of the vote. Second, Roman Reigns, 10.8%. Bray Wyatt came in third, 7.9, then Randy Orton 7, and Bayley. So Drew McIntyre, the runaway winner here, he just had a fantastic year. He finally, I guess, fulfilled the promise that he, when he came out and was given the Chosen One gimmick and that line where Vince McMahon inducted, kind of set him up. And for a while, it was almost a cursed tag that he had, but he's fulfilled that promise this year. Started the year winning the Royal Rumble, got to squash Brock Lesnar cleanly, and hasn't had to suffer the comeback loss or anything like that to Brock Lesnar since. He had great matches with the likes of Seth Rollins, Randy Orton, Roman Reigns, AJ Styles. Just a really solid run as the lead man. I thought he was a great heel a couple of years ago, and I was kind of hoping that he would become a top guy through that. But he's been a great face. Tim, what do you think of the result here?
Or to say, I just had a little panic of, oh crap, I've not turned my charger on. It's like, oh crap, it's going to die. What's my life? I'm not surprised. It's a weird one. The only thing I'd say I'm a little surprised of is, I guess, that Roman Reigns isn't higher. And I guess the only reason for that is the amount of time that, because of course he took a big chunk of the year off. And with Drew McIntyre, he's been killing it all year round for the entire 12 months. It's difficult to think of anybody else that deserves it, but they're on the list. The others are there. And I think in past years we've gone, maybe one or two of them. This year, no, every single person on that list, I can totally see why they've got the votes and why they've got that many. It's because it seems to descend in the perfect order. Maybe I'd swap Bray Wyatt round for Randy Orton. Maybe even drop Bray to 5th because I've really enjoyed Bayley this year. I'm totally in sync with how this has gone. It's not much. It's not a hot. Sometimes I have to say before that Imp doesn't have hot takes, and look at this and go, that's totally agree. There's no hot take to have. It's Drew McIntyre, easy runaway winner. Ever since the Rumble has been a complete fire, and he's been booked as a smart babyface, which is fantastic to finally see. They've finally figured out how to make their top champion not be an idiot, which is great to see.
Smart, fiery, strong. What's not to love about him?
Yeah. Scottish. Sorry, British.
Good looking.
British. Oh, I did that wrong. I did the... I accidentally nearly did the... Was it like with New Zealand, Australia, where if the Kiwi does well, he's an Aussie at heart. When it's like, oh no, he's British. He's British as Drew McIntyre. So, he's... run away for me, easily. When we get to global and stuff, I think that's when it's quite evident the wrestling headlines get a fan base doesn't, on the whole, doesn't really watch outside of certain promotions. So you can see that when the kind of people who win the awards. However, with WWE, I feel like our site visitors have nailed it this year. Absolutely nailed it. Drew McIntyre's had an amazing year, and I bloody hope he doesn't lose to Goldberg. I mean, I specifically didn't watch Raw Legends this week. I say specifically. It was Wrestle Kingdom. I was watching something, two really, really good shows instead of having to cover Raw. So, in doing that, I didn't watch Raw Legends, but I can say 2021 looks to hopefully be starting with a strong fire. Give Drew McIntyre an absolutely massive win to really cement him in the main event. So, we'll see what happens next. But really good 2020 for Drew McIntyre. Right, so next up is the WWE Tag Team of the Year. All of these graphics made by Sam, by the way. So well done, Sam, in making this insane amount of graphics. It took me long enough just to import them into the streaming software. Never mind actually making them. I've got to lean forward to actually read the data on these ones. So, in first place with 27% of the votes, it's the Street Profits. In second place is Bayley and Sasha Banks with 24%, that's pretty close. The Hurt Business with 14%, The New Day with 13%, and with 11% in last place is the Undisputed Era. And again, for me, hard to dispute or go against that. Street Profits have an incredibly strong year. They've sort of solidified themselves on the main roster. Obviously, it's not their fault that they're booked to face the one opponent for like 20 weeks in a row, then change to a new one, do that for 20 weeks in a row. Currently on Dolph Ziggler versus Bobby Roode. I don't know what number they're on already. It's not been that many weeks since the draft. Hurt Business, same issue. Hurt Business, New Day. I should be all in on that. And I was at the start. 3 months later, and it's still... They haven't wrestled anybody else, really, but until this week. It was the first time. It's like, it's insane. Just to... Stop running the same matches, please. Same with Bayley and Sasha. Like Bayley and Sasha, I was so into their tag team, but they faced Asuka and Kairi Sane how many times? It's just like no variance in the feud for the tag team. If I'm giving a critique of WWE tag scene this year, they've established really strong teams, especially as the champions for both the men and the women. However, whenever they're in a feud, there's no variance whatsoever, and you become sick and tired of it, and you're not actually excited to see any of the pay-per-view matches, because you've seen them 20 times by the time you get to it. Anyway, that's my little critique on it. Sam, what do you make of the Tag Team of the Year?
I think this is an award for consistency for the Street Profits. Like, I can't really think of a absolute blow-away moment or match that they've had, but just every single week they've shown up. They've had really enjoyable little feuds, and every time they hit the ring, they bring life. I think my enduring memory of them this year will just be how they brought life and fun to like that barren performance center. And for a while, that was something that I think we really needed, and they did. They did bring that. My personal pick was Bailey and Sasha because I love how they used it to further their feud, and how it became, they used it to further a story, I guess, and that's why I love wrestling, is because that ongoing story, that long-term story, that's the best thing. That's the number one thing I love in wrestling, and so they were my personal pick. But I can't argue with the Street Profits too much because, as you said, just that consistency. They've been strong all year long and definitely deserve to be the winners here. One thing I would mention with the Wrestler of the Year and Tag Team of the Year, the Undisputed Era came in 5th here. Last year, Adam Cole took out Wrestler of the Year easily, and Undisputed Era took out Tag Team of the Year easily. And it's a trend, I think, that NXT is not, it's, I guess, while it hasn't been, awful or anything like that, I think it has probably fallen back to the pack a little bit, and the main roster has cleaned up its act a little bit from the last couple of years, where NXT was this kind of oasis of amazingness a lot of the time, and the main roster was like, we've got some good bits, but boy, you have to sit through some real garbage to get them. It's kind of evened itself up a little bit, and now you're seeing the main roster acts sort of really assert their dominance here, whereas last year in particular, it was NXT everywhere in these end of year awards. So that's something I would say. And I also just noticed in that Josh put down Bailey's his number one for the year, and that's for the Wrestler of the Year, and that's a damn good pick there, Josh. If you are making an end of year pick, I think.
I forgot to give my one. I think it would be Drew McIntyre, actually. I think in essence I'd say it was Drew McIntyre, yeah. Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, big Scott Boy done good. But yeah, Tag Team of the Year is the same thing. Established some really good acts, and again, especially the Hurt Business. For me, they're the best new team on the scene. I'm really into the Hurt Business. Again, it's a shame they're not allowed to wrestle anybody else, but they're doing really well. They're a really strong unit, and MVP. Somebody said that MVP should be in an award for Breakout Star of the Year. I think it was a WWE employee talking about the Slammies, purely because of the year he's had with the Hurt Business and the amount of good work he's doing there. So yes, I thought I'd give that a shout out because the Hurt Business have been, for me, a revelation in the mid card of a show which is repetitive to death and boredom for me. Again, they're nailing their main events. It's just the mid card. You can sense the repetition. It kills me, especially when I watch AEW. And we'll get to those awards later. Or, as somebody told us in the comments, you got too many AEW awards. The bias is real. And immediately, I think SirSam was in the comments, just like, we've got the exact same awards. As in, it's literally, I've just swapped the name WWE for AEW. It's the same awards. What are you on about? But yeah, it doesn't matter what we do. We're biased for whichever one we're talking about. So this, I don't know how to take this stream when we're kind to both of them. That's gonna be the end.
Positive people.
Yeah. But yeah, the tag scene. Great teams established. They've done a really good job of, especially building up the likes of the Hurt Business. Street Profits, the tag team champions, been great and consistent. Bayley and Sasha were, whilst they were champions, and I like the little rumblings they did underneath as well. New Day are just my favourite thing in the WWE tag world, and I'm totally with you. We'll see the pattern. NXT normally has got multiple nominations for tag team single stars, for show of the year, for match of the year, but this year they get one if they're lucky. Like they really have. Just you can see the fan kind of reception to their current product dropped off a cliff, or elsewhere it's risen and they've kind of a little bit. Where to put it in? Can you tell we're very good writers when I have to explain it as got a bit. But yeah.
And this is not, and just to put it out there, this is not, like anyone who's read my stuff will know that I've been very disenchanted with the WWE over the years. But this is a fan voted thing. This is the readers. So this is 700 votes. I get one vote in this. Just because I put it together doesn't mean I get any special powers. And I just think it's an interesting trend to see. It's not, it's not me trying to have a goal or anything like that. If you love NXT, that's fantastic. But I just think it's an interesting trend that we're seeing. Do we want to move on to the non-wrestler of the year, Imp?
We do. I clicked it to move the picture on. As we did that. So, yes. Do you want to read out the non-wrestling personalities of the year?
Yeah, so we have Paul Heyman just dominating in this category with 43.9% of the vote. William Regal comes in second, 9.8%. Wade Barrett third, 9%. Charlie Caruso 7.8%, and then Corey Graves 6.3%. You'll notice the graphics kind of cut off the point part, but I like to read that out personally. Yeah, Paul Heyman just and in some of it, there's a reason for that, because in some of the categories the point part actually makes a difference. But yeah, Paul Heyman, I think it's the last few years when we've run this, I found it strange that he hasn't picked it up, because he's so well loved particularly in the diehard wrestling community, and particularly by the readers of Wrestling Headlines, formerly Lords of Pain, a lot of older people who love his ECW stuff. So are very likely to vote for him. But he hasn't won this, and this year I think with adding, being able to show a bit more versatility, as both on the pre-shows and post-shows, and also particularly with his work with Roman Reigns, just the blow-away winner by a long shot here. And I think fair to be absolutely the right person in this case.
No Adam Pearce? Yeah, I'm trying to think who would actually win this year.
Tom Phillips.
Oh, Vic Joseph with his banter with Wade Barrett, totally not scripted banter. It's like, oh, yeah. It's hard to think of anybody else, because they don't really do managers. There isn't really anyone who isn't a manager who also doesn't do a little bit of stuff. I guess if we're looking at this time next year, Reginald, who's with Carmella, he got over at TLC. He was like immediately, he's like, my boy. Yes. Oh yeah.
He better not wrestle. If he wants to take this one out.
If he wants this award, he's got to take it seriously. Not get in that ring. But yeah, it's hard to think of anybody else. Paul Heyman, obviously, extremely important in terms of Drew McIntyre's initial run of the first, I guess, quarter to WrestleMania. Dropped off then to, I guess, more backstage stuff. But still, yeah, there's nobody else I can think of to nominate for this. Nobody else. There isn't really just a manager that's on TV enough to really get him close.
I think it's worth noting though, he hasn't won this just by default, because previous years, managers have never been that big in the WWE, and he hasn't won this for the last 3 years when I've been running this award. And so the thing that I think has differentiated his previous years from this year is he's doing more than just the Brock Lesnar stick, which he did, and he did very well, but he did the same thing over and over again for since I can't remember when he took on Brock Lesnar as the advocate for him. But the difference this year, I think, and one of the reasons that he stood out, is because he's shown his versatility. This guy is an incredible promo, and him being able to show that is what's just led him to dominate this award.
Yeah, I think it's the different kind of promo he's been giving with the Roman Reigns character. For me, it's
exactly
just getting over how frightened of the man he is. It just adds so much to it. It's nice to see that compared to the promo machine that he was for Brock Lesnar. This is such a different tact for doing it, and I'm all for it as well. And it's great to hear news of Roman Reigns shutting down crap storylines. So it's great. Oh, just my heart's like, oh yes, it's great to hear that we're going to get an NXT call up, and it made no sense, and it was just weird, and it wasn't going to fit in at all. I was like, why would this be the case? There's no history for this. So Roman gets it shut down. Like, yes, good on you, man. Good on you. Right, we've got a lot of awards to get through. So moving on to the WWE Rookie of the Year. So this one, obviously, when we say rookie, we mean new to the promotion this year. We don't mean in the world of wrestling. Otherwise, obviously, the likes of Karrion Kross and Mercedes Martinez would never be up for this award, and it would just be Dominic Mysterio. Because that was my vote. Rookie of the Year, Dominic Mysterio. It's not even in question. Next, it'll be Shotzi Blackheart. And looking at the voting, they are right next to each other in the votes. So that kind of does help up. To save me zooming in with my face to the camera to be able to read the stats, because I'm on the streaming software. Sam, could you read out the results for the Rookie of the Year?
Yeah, so Karrion Kross took it out with 28.5% of the vote. Pat McAfee came in second, 23.9%. Dominic Mysterio, very close third, 23.3%. It's only 0.6% separating these guys, which was not a lot of votes. And then Shotzi Blackheart, 18.9%. Between those four, that's 95% of the vote pretty much. So these guys, there was a big four in this. Mercedes Martinez, 2.3%, and that was pretty much it. I think there was a few people who got maybe 1 or 2 votes, but it really came down to these four. And you do have an interesting blend here of Karrion Kross and Shotzi Blackheart, who have very refined acts that they've worked on for many years in the Indies, got brought in by NXT, and have, done really well and been presented with used those gimmicks that they've already created and had those enhanced by the WWE production. But, they are those established names, established wrestlers. And then you've got in between them, Pat McAfee and Dominic Mysterio, who of two people who had the start of this year, not only were they WWE rookies, they'd never had a wrestling match before. And yet they've come on and done amazing work, fantastic work, a real tribute to the WWE's the wrestlers that they've been put against, the stories that they've been booked in, and the work that's been done behind the scenes with these guys, so that these incredibly green performers didn't look green when they actually hit the ring. And obviously, Dominic Mysterio, he's grown up in the wrestling business and has. I don't know how much genes count for, but if he's got, if it counts for anything, he's got it. Comes from a very strong wrestling family and wrestling culture. And Pat McAfee obviously is a fan of wrestling. But I think for me, the shining stars are Pat McAfee and Dominic Mysterio. Not to take anything away from Karrion Kross or Shotzi Blackheart, because those guys had not had they hadn't, as I said, not just WWE rookies. They were wrestling rookies. They had not wrestled before this year, and they managed to have great matches and involved in great programs that didn't look like complete rookies, like I imagine you or I would if we would have stepped into the ring in.
Yeah, that everything Sam just said is exactly why I voted for Dominic Mysterio. Personally, he was my pick. And yeah, I can't really add anything else to say. Exactly the reasons why I voted for him. Massively impressed by him. And even just like week-to-week improvement, it's incredible really to see him get to the level he's already at. Karrion Kross winning I find interesting, purely because, especially when I go into social media or look at the comment sections on wrestling headlines or what have you, it seems a bit split on Karrion Kross. Like, people either really get him or don't get him at all, which is why I find it quite interesting that he's ended up winning this category, purely because fans do seem a bit Marmite on him. Like, for me personally, when I look at acts in NXT, I've started judging them not on which is my favourite, but which ones do I think will succeed in WWE. Obviously, you got your different stuff where you do Raquel Gonzalez versus Rhea Ripley. It's like, oh, big hoss, get in. So obviously, I'm going to enjoy that. But with this award here, it's more in the WWE world. Who do I think will do the best? And for me, when I was watching, Punishment Martinez's name, Damian Priest. When I watched Damian Priest and Karrion Kross in their match this week, I was like, surely those two guys are going to be stars on the main roster. They both absolutely scream WWE star to me. That doesn't mean they're my favourite wrestlers. This is when I watch them and like, they're going to kill it. Surely these guys are going to be amazing. It's difficult to see that not happening just because of the kind of acts that they are. So Karrion Kross to me screams like a Kevin Owens style run, where he has a really big. The injuries probably held him back, but once he gets a little run with the NXT title, it's surely just a matter of time before he's on the main roster. Just everything about the act feels just ready, especially as he's come back from injury. Because in those first few months, obviously, he was figuring out the act a little bit, and you see little weird tweaks and things, especially in his Keith Lee feud. No with the fire via contract thing. That was weird. But since he's gone back here, it felt like they've really got it, and the action just feels ready, and especially with the whole presentation and everything, I'll be surprised if he's not on the main roster by the end of the year. In terms of random predictions, I'm really surprised if Karrion Kross is not on the main roster by this time we're doing the awards next year. That's my wild prediction. But yeah, interesting to see that he actually won. And that brings us to the end of our our WWE section for these few awards. We'll jump back to WWE for matches and things, but we're going to jump over now to AEW. And time to piss off a certain section of our viewers' commenters. What everybody talking about the other. I don't get brand loyalty. Not a thing for me. It's the AEW Wrestler of the Year. And Sam, do you want to run through and get amped in style for your favourite winning?
Hell yeah, I do. Jon Moxley, 46.7% of the vote. He takes home AEW Wrestler of the Year in dominant fashion from Kenny Omega, 13.1%, Chris Jericho, 7.6%, MJF, 5.6%, and Orange Cassidy coming in 5th, 5.2%, ahead of Cody, who he beat by just a few votes. So Cody Rhodes not even making the graph this year, which was a surprise, but no surprise to me. Is Jon Moxley taking it 46.7%. As you can see, this was the first wrestling shirt I ever bought, my DA Dean Ambrose shirt. I ride and die with this man, and this year has been a career year for him. He opened the year with an incredible feud with Chris Jericho, where he fought through the Inner Circle one week after the other. Incredible episodic television. Had his eye injured and was fought week after week still, up until the match with Chris Jericho where he won the AEW champion, and he has had one of the great face runs in this deck. I think the greatest face championship run in the last decade. You can debate me on that. There's a column. You can hit me up on Twitter about that. That's what I think, and I think there's a damn good argument for it. This guy has, the face of AEW, has been amazing. Every week he has come in and he has delivered incredible promos. He has delivered in the ring every time he's got there. He has built other wrestlers up. You look at the people that he fought and where they've gone to after he fought them, and he has been an elevation machine as well as being able to elevate himself and put himself over as well. It's been a career year for Jon Moxley, and it's, I've ridden and died. I've had some hard years as a Dean Ambrose fan where I felt like I was banging my head against the popular consensus, but this year has not been the case. This year has been the year where everybody has just loved what Jon Moxley has been putting out, and for good reason. This man has been on fire this year and well and truly deserves to win. Coming in second, of course, Kenny Omega. I'm a fan of Kenny as well, as you can see, but I think 2021 will be the year of Kenny Omega. I'm very happy for Jon Moxley. What are you going to say?
It's awesome to see such a strong consensus as well. Because I remember seeing you just tweet about your views on the title run, and obviously some people go, oh no, but to see in the voting that's exactly what people have gone for. Like, he's got such a strong voting. It's like, you can look back on your tweet and go, no, I'm vindicated now. The people have voted with me. It's a really, really strong championship run. Again, great to see a champion on top, not but like an idiot, because it's AEW. This is the first face champion they've had, and it's great to see them do such a strong run for it as well. It's also great to see Kenny Omega in second, in spite of killing the business by letting Alan Angels get in some offense. It's just
a V trigger, kicked out of a V trigger.
It's not. How
he
dare
only delivered like 20 to Kazuchika Okada.
How dare he kick out of a transitional setup move? How dare he? But yeah, it's seeing such a strong thing for Jon Moxley. It's fantastic to see people in agreement that it's been a really strong championship run, and for both companies, they're the year-long champion. I've won it both times for both WWE and AEW, and it's good to see both promotions nailed it. Like, at the end of the day, they both killed it with both of their top guys. So kudos, well done to them. I say AEW, it's LED.
Yeah, in an era of heel, I think as I said in the column I wrote, in an era of strong heel champions, it's great to see strong face champions. It's really enjoyable as a fan. And look, as I said, look, I ride and die with Jon Moxley. I wish everyone could get this kind of year for the wrestler that they're the biggest fan of. Jon Moxley's he's my favorite wrestler of all time, and it's been incredible to see him have a year like this. And for people who are fans of different wrestlers and they might not have had this, I really hope you can get it, because it's been a really fun year to be a fan of wrestling, and a lot of that for me is because my boy has been prime center in the main event, just killing the game. And we probably will need to move on. I could wax lyric about this all day long. It's just awesome to see. And also, I will just say, cool to see MJF and Orange Cassidy in this. Squeezing their way into the big four of AEW singles wrestlers.
Yeah, completely going against the argument of AEW is just former WWE or Bullet Club guys, or Elite guys, sorry. Yeah, so it's only those people that, well, 2 people on our top 5 are neither of those things. So, again, that's not a comment from anybody who actually watches the show. It's like, you can normally pinpoint them from when it's I call it like the catchphrase kind of thing, like the da-da-da's in the impact zone. Like, you can think of the kind of critique for AEW and go, that's not from somebody who watches the show, because it just doesn't happen. It's just not a thing. And it's good to see 2 people climbing. And like this week, I put it out when I was watching, because NXT was an amazing show. I gave a glowing review. However, when I turned on AEW this week, it was just, I think I put it as like, I just felt calm and happy. Like, there was nothing, in terms of what was my favourite show of the week, there's nothing complicated or analytical or technically this match was better about it. I was just happy. And it felt weird. I don't know, just to sit down and watch a wrestling show, and I just felt content and happy. And one of the things that highlighted for me on that show was MJF, after Jake Hager had lost his match, MJF went up and consoled him and like, oh, you're making me care about them in the inner circle. Oh, that's great to see. You're not just doing wrestling angle. I know how this goes. He's going to break the inner circle apart. This is a wrestling angle. It's like, no, that's great to see. Anyway, we do need to move on before I start just fanboying about the random crap that AEW setting up. So, next up is the
We can take our dunks when we get to promotion of the year, Imp.
Yes, that's a point, yes. If we've still got energy by the time we're at those final awards, which is a while away. But yes, the AEW Tag Team of the Year, and immediately off the image, yes. 100% in agreement. Yeah, Adam Page and Kenny Omega. Amazing matches during their run, including my personal AEW Match of the Year. But SirSam, as you've got the more pinpointed stats, and of course I have to go like this to be able to read it. So what are the statistics for Tag Team of the Year?
Yeah, as you can see, Adam Page and Kenny Omega took out 28% of the vote, closely followed by FTR 25.6 and the Young Bucks 20.5. So very much the big 3 tag teams there. No surprise that those guys shone out in just fourth and fifth place. Lucha Brothers 5.6% and Jurassic Express on 3.9. Look, Kenny Omega and Adam Page were my favourite. Similarly to with Bayley and Sasha, I loved that they used the tag teams to further their story. And you know what? Sometimes singles wrestlers getting together, particularly singles stars of the caliber of Adam Page and Kenny Omega, who are real, they are top level stars in AEW. Them getting together and going into the tag division can be a sign of a failing or flagging division. It can be bad for the division's health to see that. For every, I don't know, like Owen Hart and Yokozuna or Chris Jericho and Big Show, there's Big Show and The Miz, or MVP and Mark Henry, just things that
MVP Mark Henry.
shouldn't be there.
Ooh.
That was a tag team.
Forgot about that.
But these guys went in there and they bolstered the tag team division. They used their partnership to further their feud, to further the stories of FTR and the Young Bucks in this in the company, to further to build up other tag teams around them as well, and had absolute banger matches from top to bottom. Obviously the match with the Young Bucks, we're going to talk about that later, but great match with SCU on the boat to win the tag team championships. killer match with the Lucha Brothers. They were involved in a number of multi-man matches as well. Great match with FTR where they finally lost the title. They had a great match with Jurassic Express where Kenny Omega absolutely destroyed Marco Stunt, and I want to see them fight again. These guys, they have plenty of history as teammates and stablemates together, so it makes sense that they would tag together and have such great chemistry. But they knocked it out of the park. Absolutely, on fire all year as a tag team. FTR coming in very high hopes, very high expectations, and they may not have, I feel like I would say that the Young Bucks have shown that they are the greatest tag team of this generation, and have proved that when you compare the FTR and the Young Bucks run. That's my opinion. But FTR have still done fantastically. As champions, they had weekly matches. They had the weekly challenge. I think they called it a brush with greatness or something.
Something like
and
that,
have just been, it's been really fun to watch them as characters as well, get to flesh themselves out. And one thing that I love in all of their matches, they're always looking for ways that they can make. They call themselves, this amazing tag team, the greatest tag team. These workman-like people who'll just cut you down as a team, but they're always looking to cheat their way into some sort of advantage, even before things happen. So, for example, they as part of their contract want a tag team appreciation night where everyone except themselves wrestled, just to tire out the other teams and potentially injure one of the other teams. They're always doing something like that, where they say they're one thing, but in actual fact they're another, and that just makes them great heels. So yeah, really enjoyed seeing FTR finally, get unchained and have the foot to the floor with the accelerator pedal. Really, really great run in AEW this year. I'll let you let you wax some lyrics about these guys.
We'll just say laptop freaked out a little bit, but the audio shouldn't have stopped. So even if you see Sam pause, the audio will continue. It's the detriment of doing it on a laptop during lockdown. It happens. It happens. But yeah, so totally agree with everything that Sam just said. And with Adam Page and Kenny Omega especially, for me, they had such a string of amazing matches. And as Sam pointed out for one of the awards earlier, just how important story is for following, I guess, kind of tag teams and things, stories for the wrestling. A lot of it is about the story. And Hangman Page and Kenny Omega, as in when we said before, because it was difficult to explain to fans who'd only watched WWE what we meant by long-term storytelling, and I'd attempted it in the past to refer to Tetsuya Naito and Kazuchika Okada. That was kind of my pinpoint of, it took Naito 4 years. That story was 4 years to then lose again. That was that story. However, but there's no point of reference to anything like that in WWE. When it's to them, long-form storytelling is telling the story for a long time. As in, the same story with no break for a long time. No. As an AEW has shown, you don't have to have the same wrestlers in the ring wrestling each other every single week for the story to continue. Because they're the same characters. You don't have to have them interact every bleeding moment of every single time. So it's been really told really, really well, and they're still telling it. Case in point, they're telling the story still right now, even though Hangman Page wasn't on the show. Wait, no, was he on the show this week? I don't think he was. I think he was on the show this week. No, he wasn't. But they're still telling the story, and I was watching the Wrestle Talk review for AEW this week, and somebody suggested something. I was like, oh yes. It was just, what do you do with the actual kind of dynamics of the factions right now in AEW, with the super elite being born at the end of this week's show? Where do you go from there? Well, to come off of Kenny Omega, Hangman Page, surely it's got to be Hangman Page. And now there's no way in hell the Dark Order can be heel anymore. It's just not going to happen. So who is currently in a little storyline with the Dark Order, who's got a little history with Kenny Omega, who's got a little history with the Bullet Club? It's just like, oh my god, what if Hangman Page goes after the title with his new Dark Order friends? It's just like, oh, it works on so many levels. It's just and that's kind of what we mean by long-term storytelling. It's just you suddenly look into the past to be able to decide the future. And that's what's been missing from WWE for me, because it's the comic book storytelling. You drop the last story when you move on to the next one. You keep the kind of the character stuff that's grown, but a lot of the relationships and things, they're then brought up for convenience later. They don't influence the next thing. So I guess in terms of unpredictability, that means often you can't predict who will be the next person for them to wrestle, which is why the Fiend Randy Orton feels different, because there's precedent for it. It's based off of history. I just realised I said that isn't in WWE, but yeah, case in point, it is in WWE right at this moment. So it's good. Again, massive improvements this year, especially on the main roster, and that's one of the kind of examples for me. If you don't like the feud, to be honest, the stuff with Alexa Bliss this past couple of weeks, pretty crap. But they're using history and building it forward to actually do something with it. And but in AEW, we're seeing that this is exactly what we were talking about when we tried to explain long-term storytelling. But we can now show it you 1 year later when it's actually been happening. This is what we meant, and it's fantastic to see. And it's essentially exciting.
And like the first time. The first time, just to round this out, I guess, with talking about long-term story, like the first time, I disagree that WWE can't do it, because these two guys here put on a pretty damn good long-term story, if I may say so. Read my... Anyway, I'll stop plugging my columns here. I get on once a year and I just turn into a plug machine. Read my columns. But like with Adam Page and Kenny Omega, I think the thing that I like is the ongoing dynamic between them, where at first it looked like Adam Page was going to be the one that would turn on Kenny Omega at Revolution, and it looked like that's the way things were angling, but it didn't happen. And the relationships kind of ebb and flow. They're not always set in concrete with who is, and it turned out Kenny Omega was the asshole after all. Who didn't want to have anything to do with Adam Page once they were done. We've talked a lot about this, so I think we probably should move on. But yeah, look, as you can see, because me and him just keep where we would talk about this forever. The story these guys told, and it's because they was what they did this while they were having an awesome tag team run. That's why they've won this year, and I'm glad that they did. And truly deserved.
So moving on to, and again, there wasn't really much competition in the WWE version, but on the AEW version for the non-wrestling personality of the year, Taz staring us all down with his evil baddie face. Taz winning it, a run of commentary and a referee in Aubrey Edwards making the list as well. And that's another case of point where when AEW started, it's like, what do you mean they're going to give referees personalities? What kind of indie crap is that? And then again, us being New Japan fans, being like, no, like you mark out when, like, good on you, red shoes, that type of thing. They've got characters' personalities. In WWE, they are, a characterless shirt, robot shirt. It could be a Robot Wars referee. It could be like that. If anyone remembers in Robot Wars when they introduced the referee, that was a bad robot. But they're essentially that. But in AEW, they're characters and things, and again, people who've watched the indies, who've watched other wrestling other than that, especially in New Japan as well. Like, even Impact did it a little bit when they gave character to Rudy Charles for a bit. And it's great to see Aubrey Edwards making this list. I know Taz has won. I'm talking about who's come fourth, but I just find that as like a key thing. Like the attention and kind of depth for every single person that appears on the roster has got something different about them, and that includes the referees and the commentators, as you can see, all getting nominated. But the winner is Taz. So Sam, do you want to? I've realised I've not actually gone through the stats. If you want to go through the numbers.
Just before we do you think if I'd put this out, I started the voting on this, I think it was like the 18th of December. If I'd waited a few weeks, I could probably have put Sting in the non-wrestling personalities of the year, and he could have beaten Taz like he does every damn week on AEW, and it's stupid. Anyway, Taz takes out.
I hate this goddamn snow. I hate this goddamn snow. Yeah. That made me laugh.
25%. Taz takes it out 25%. Jim Ross in second, 16.6. Tony Schiavone, 15.2%. Aubrey Edwards, 10.2%. And then Jake Roberts, 9.6%. Yeah, look, an even split across this. I really, to get into some of the lower placing ones, my personal pick would be Tony Schiavone, because I just love the enthusiasm he has. He's kind of like where Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone have a lot of energy, but Jim Ross is often grumpy, whereas Jim Ross defaults to grumpiness. Tony Schiavone defaults to enthusiasm, and I just love that. I love how he's so excited about everything. Jim Ross, look, he says some stupid stuff, and sometimes he is his own worst enemy, but there's no doubt that he still adds a bit of gravitas. And I've been talking about Moxley, and Jim Ross is a big part of what's made John Moxley special, in the way that he's announced him and built him up. But yeah, look, Taz is a fair winner here. He has been probably the most featured of the non-wrestling personalities, particularly on the mic. And why wouldn't you feature him when you've got someone who's as good on the mic as he is? And he's got this team of killers around him now. Not Darby Allin, that's who he feuds against, Sam. Brian Cage, Ricky Starks, Will Power, Powerhouse Will Hobbs, whatever his name is, and now his son Hook, who's an absolute goon. It's hilarious. Yeah, look, well deserved here with Taz. He's cut great promos every week, built up a number of wrestlers he's been going against, and built up these wrestlers that he's got, in his little squad, in his Team Taz.
Yeah, I really, again, as I was talking about, it making me laugh with Taz just rapping on about how much he hates snow from this week's one. It's goddamn snow. But yeah, he's been really, really entertaining. And I think a showing thing from it is seemingly every company that's hired him this past decade or so has just put him into commentary or something like that. There was the reveal on what were they called? The bikers, Aces and Eights. That was it. To think that was this decade, that is mental. But yeah, so that's the closest we came. But he was still not really featured, and then they just did it so they could have a heel commentator. And whenever he's done WWE work, it's been that as well for a little while. So to see him go into this position and absolutely nail it, and he came across immediately as one of the kind of people. There's quite a few people like Arn Anderson, like Jake Roberts, which is also nominated for this, who's pure presence. Tully Blanchard, that's the other one I'm trying to remember. Just in terms of their presence is all about getting the current crop of talent over. And I think, again, something about Team Taz, they're all new names to, I guess, mainstream wrestling television. And they've got the rookie in Will Hobbs. You've got I want to say super rookie, I mean, he's the rookiest of the rookie in Hook as well, in terms of his son. It's great to see that as well. And yes, obviously, at some point, they're going to have to stop being scared of Sting and the snow, eventually. But yeah, for me, those angles are more about getting over Sting and Darby Allin's, when I say relationship, I mean whatever it is that they've got going on. Kind of building that up. But of course, yeah, and no bad feelings for Sam for accidentally calling Brian Cage Darby Allin. They are at least wrestling next week, so at least the names are associated. It's not the biggest slip. But yeah, it's awesome to see Taz win this because he has been fantastic. And yeah, it's great to see managers killing it on the wrestling telly show again. It's been a while. It's great to see. The closest we've had, I guess, is Gado. I guess with Kazu, or come on, Ramaker! No, it's Taka with Zack Sabre Jr. I love that pairing. That was so good. I know it doesn't technically count because Taka was wrestling. But that pairing was so good. I really enjoyed that. Right, next up is the AEW Rookie of the Year. And obviously, Brody Lee winning this out in the category of somebody with lots of experience coming in to elevate the entire people around him. And apparently the spirit he gave backstage and everything. And I wouldn't be surprised if this was a relatively late surge. I can't remember when did he pass away? I can't remember. Christmas mucks me up. Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was like a late surge.
I can count it down. So, yeah, Brody Lee took this out 23.4% of the vote. Eddie Kingston 16.3% of the vote. FTR 9.5%. Brian Cage 6.7%. Matt Hardy 6.2%. So I see the votes as they come in, and it actually gives me a graph so I can see where people are sitting percentage wise. And he was pretty close with Eddie Kingston. So him and Eddie Kingston had been going back and forth with first and second. But look, once the sad news of Brodie Lee passing away came out, he flew ahead. And, you know, I don't want to put it down to him dying that he won this award, because as I said,
it's already up.
He deserved this award in his own right. If he was still around today, he deserved this. The programs that he was in, he took the Dark Order from a throwaway that people hated. People used the Dark Order to beat AEW over the head. They held it against AEW, and he took it and made it a serious faction. Had an incredible match with Moxley. That's my match of the year, by the way. Spoilers for later. My singles match of the year for AEW. Brodie Lee, incredible match where he just looked like, I liken that match to him looking like the Terminator, where John Moxley is just doing everything he can to this thing, and it just keeps on coming forward. He, you know, hit him with chairs. He put him through a table. He dirty deedsed him through the entrance ramp, and this thing just kept crawling out. And for Moxley, it was like, well, what can I do to kill this monster? Then had an incredible run against Cody Rhodes, like one of the hottest feuds of the year, and finished things with the dog collar match, which was just an incredible match, probably one of the best matches of Brodie Lee's career.
My favourite of all of them is the dog collar.
Who else can say that they went out on the hottest program they've ever been in? And to give you and the listeners a bit of a heads up, I'm actually going to rename this award the Brodie Lee AEW Rookie of the Year award, not just because he won it, but because of how he also elevated other rookies. So Anna Jay came in 7th. She was given the confidence to do as well as she did by Brodie Lee. If John Silver hadn't wrestled last year, I'm sure he would have featured in this, and he was given the confidence to do that by Brodie Lee. Brodie Lee, from all accounts, inspired people backstage. So this will now be known as the Brodie Lee AEW Rookie of the Year award. Before we get into the others, just do you have anything to say about Brodie Lee?
He, for me, always came across as somebody, because I knew of him before he came, and I knew he was one of the people who had done some stuff with John Moxley and stuff. I didn't watch it until post WWE career starting. But knew of him, and the thing that really kind of changed my perception on him was watching Up Up Down Down, and he would just come in and just chill with them. And like one of the first things that came to my head when I heard of his passing was remembering him coming into, I think they were just doing I forgot what it's called, the manager mode on one of the SmackDown vs. Raw games, and he just came in with his kids and just started mucking about, and I can't remember which kid it was. Just started making loads of ruckus and noises and things, and so Brodie started just coming in to irritate the two of them. But it's just the family spirit he just brought in by just existing with them in that room. It's just really. Again, I don't know. When he came in, he heartwarmed the place, kind of thing. You could just sense it, and that was the first thing I thought of when I heard of his passing. Just that little moment on Up Up Down Down. But yeah, in terms of you saw it immediately, just the amount of love that came out, and in AEW, that absolutely, when I say the best show they've done, I mean it's a completely different vein, because every other week I'm thinking this is the best show they've done, but the tribute show was just of a different kind of best show. It's more out of respect.
It was something else.
Yeah, out of respect, I don't want to judge the wrestling type of thing. It's as a tribute show, it's one of the best I've ever seen. Because we're not used to a promotion going all out like that, and it was an amazing dedication. Can't applaud it enough. It made you laugh, it made you cry, it gave you all the I described BTE that week as cathartic. I feel like Dynamite that week as well, the tribute show, those two things paired together were exactly what everybody needed, from fans to people involved, people who knew him or whatever. It hit every note perfectly. Obviously, it sucks. It's sad, but they've seemed to honour him in a fantastic way. Especially, and I think one thing that everybody zoned in on was starting every single Dynamite from now on with it's Wednesday. You know what that means. So yeah, and all down for renaming this award the AEW Brody Lee Rookie of the Year. And winning it, obviously, it's him and Eddie Kingston at the top. I think that says a lot about the kind of people that are up for this. Because as great as to see Anna Jay get so high on this, she's been wrestling I don't even know if it's been a year yet. It's insane. Like to say the amount of confidence that was given to her and the amounts that she's improving by. It's not even been a year, which is incredible. Like, I can't even remember when she debuted, but I want to say it was at the current location, so it must have been during lockdown when she actually debuted for AEW.
It was during the lockdown series, yeah. She had a match with Hikaru Shida.
And that's mental to think that she's improving at that rate and finishes 7th, just to show the amount of influence. Yeah. And
one of the things I wanted to bring up was that with this award, I'm not really sure what to do with it. I almost feel like we need to split it into two, where you've got, the Brody Lees, the FTRs, who, they are not rookies, they're well-known commodities who, this is their first year in AEW, so that's why they qualify for Rookie of the Year. Whereas coming in, so I'd say in terms of the Eddie Kingston is probably rightfully the Rookie of the Year in terms of someone who hasn't got any sort of... He's been around forever, but he's come on like a storm, and hasn't been exposed on a major level until now. And look out, man, he's been incredible. And then you've got Thunder Rosa came in 6th, Anna Jay came in 7th, Ricky Starks in 8th, and then 10th was Wardlow, 11th Abaddon. So that's sort of where the more what you'd call the traditional rookies have come in. Eddie Kingston, I mean, from the minute he stepped out from the curtain, opposite Cody Rhodes, he has been on fire. Lit Cody Rhodes on fire. He's lit John Moxley on fire. He's now, busy lighting Pac on fire. Just what a revelation. And fans of Eddie Kingston are like, I told yous. I told yous. And I've seen him on NWA, and I was like, man, this guy can talk. But even, seeing him show up on AEW, it's been a treat. Absolute treat.
Yeah, an absolute revelation. And to say he's not even been in the promotion half a year yet. Came in during the summer, absolutely killed it in his match with Cody Rhodes. And ever since, and we can say Rhodes now, there's a little addition from this year that might just get dropped off. But yeah, it's incredible first year for Eddie Kingston. It's fantastic to see. Just immediately everybody's going on, this man is highly respected from the get-go. And as you can see, massively influential backstage, just like I guess Matt Hardy's made this list as well. Another vet who's come in and his sole purpose is elevating those around him. I see a lot of because of what's happening in WWE with Goldberg, immediately this week there's been arguments about Sting and his presence in AEW.
Miss me with that take, please.
Yeah, because immediately I'm like, but so far, for me, what I've seen for Sting is his entire purpose has been about elevating Darby Allin. That's my... and Team Taz, I guess, a bit, but at the moment Team Taz is getting just not that. I'm seeing long term they'll get to hit him down a bit. But yeah, I feel like his entire purpose is to elevate Darby Allin. Just the way that they're doing that. And it's great to see all of these vets come in and their specific purpose is elevating those around them. And FTR, next week they're wrestling Jungle Boy and Marco Stunt. And yes, Jungle Boy's going to be coming out to Tarzan. Like, yes. Again, a fan of his on the indies to see. Yes, it works. It's good. The whole crowd it's one of those things where it sucks. It's not going to be in front of a massive loud live crowd all singing Jungle Boy. Tarzan Boy. I keep calling the song Jungle Boy. That's how tied to it I am as a wrestling fan. Anyway, moving on to the wider category of the global / indie. As Sam said, trying to think of something to do with it, but of course you have to draw the line somewhere. So global / indies, like everything else. So the wrestler of the year. Very, very tight, and most often this is the award where it hits you. Not a lot of the visitors versus headlines necessarily watch outside the top 2 promotions of America. It's an American site. It makes sense. It's not the worst thing in the world. But of course, this is where me and Sam have our little discussion and normally just nominate somebody who's not on the list. So the winner of global / indie wrestler of the year is Will Ospreay, but seemingly just. So have you got the pinpoint stats for this, Sam?
Yeah, so Will Ospreay, 10.6% of the vote. Nick Aldis, 10.2% of the vote. Kota Ibushi, 9.3% of the vote in third. And then Thunder Rosa, 8.6% of the vote in fourth. There was 20 votes in between the first and fourth position. So when I was tweeting out that every single vote counts and there's some big categories that are going to be decided by a handful of votes, this was one of them. This was so close. At different points, Kota Ibushi was leading. At different points, Nick Aldis was leading. But in the end, once the votes were settled, Will Ospreay squeaked out the rest of them. Will Ospreay had a hell of a year. Started the year against Hiromu Takahashi at Wrestle Kingdom. Had a really great match, which there's a lot of love for, with Zack Sabre Jr. In Rev Pro. Then went into a few. Well, in lockdown, he had to stay in England for quite a while, but then came into the G1. Had a really good G1. Was one of the many MVPs of that tournament, and used it as a platform to slowly show that he is changing. And then on the final show, he turned on Kazuchika Okada, created his own faction, Empire, and went into Wrestle Kingdom, which was just this last few weeks, just last week, and will be in contention for 2021 match with Kazuchika Okada to sort of round out that feud. I think he is going to be a very strong proposition for this year, given that he has a faction at his back and already has a match with Kazuchika Okada under his belt. But a big 2020 for Will Ospreay.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And it's also a year that he saw his fan perception get massively damaged as well with the whole speaking out movement, and he was one of the names associated with somebody associated.
Was later exonerated, just to put it out there before,
Yeah, and obviously when those things happen, your fan perception gets absolutely damaged. And for me, this is kind of evidence that, like the wrestling Twitter world, it's just a small percentage. This is, and for like it kind of, even though like most wrestling fans on Twitter will be aware of it, obviously the fans who voted in this have still put him up there. Like he's really high up as well. Obviously, I personally, there's a lot of names on here that might have done better if it weren't for lockdown. And I think I put Will Ospreay on that list to begin with, because the amount of time NJPW were out of action, I just assumed something. Of course, the world as well, to be fair. But the likes of NWA, so Nick Aldis and Thunder Rosa especially. Thunder Rosa has obviously been massively helped by AEW and her amazing run so far there. But NWA just not being able to produce anything has massively hurt. Like Nick Aldis finishing second in spite of that. That
was a surprise to me.
He was doing fantastic work with NWA, especially as like one of their top guys. Just amazing stuff. However, surprised me. Because obviously New Japan's my number one baby, so it's obviously only seeing Kota Ibushi make that list. It's like, oh, that's a shame because New Japan did do really, really well. And I guess another name for me would be Jay White, specifically because he didn't come back till the G1. He was only really active for the 2 months at the start and then 3 months at the end. So that's why I put Nick Aldis in that same bracket as Jay White. So maybe he would have got more votes if Nick Aldis could have won this if it weren't for lockdown. And the fact he got that high means it must have been respected for what he was doing as like the top guy of NWA before it. Then obviously not had anything, and now the titles are featured on AEW. Which, good for AEW to kind of keep the brand name alive for when they do eventually return, whenever it is. But yeah, personally, I think my vote did go to Jay White, just because he won me over so strongly in the G1, and then to see his work.
He was so good
now,
in the G1.
And as Sam's saying, hopefully you get to see your favourites have that amazing breakout year that you got with Jon Moxley this year. And this year that seems to be Ibushi fans. However, I think I'm slowly becoming a Jay White one. This is not the year to become a Jay White fan and expect anything good. This is the year he has a full-on... Assuming he stays with New Japan, which is, as we're recording this, as we're doing it live, we're in the middle of... it's the week where he did that amazing blurring of the lines promo, and it's there's rumours coming out it's 50-50 whether he does extend his contract at the end of February. However, my massive assumption is it's just fantastic and amazing character work by Jay White, using kind of real life angers in the current situation, being made to wrestle, I guess, in a country where the stats are going up, and he's putting his life on the line to do this, and for what kind of response, and to just let all of that out in his promo. It was amazing. So he's kicking off 2020 in incredible fashion, but for me, it's still character work. Even if I'm rating it as incredible stuff, it's still character work. It's this year was meant to be the year of Jay White, but instead they told the story of failure. And it's like, yes, not the year to be totally won over by him. But yeah, incredible work from Jay White. That's why he was my personal choice. What was your personal choice for Global Indie?
So I oscillated between two guys many times, and I think in different polls I voted for different ones. So they were Shingo Takagi and Hiromu Takahashi. So in New Japan, people who are fans of New Japan will know this well. The heavyweight scene was a pretty mixed bag. Sorry, the main event scene was a bit of a mixed bag this year with, some real disappointments, if I'm honest, in terms of the performances of some of the guys in the main event scene, which has usually been New Japan's strength. And Shingo Takagi and Hiromu Takahashi have been the pillars of the other divisions, the never openweight division, which Shingo Takagi was the main guy in for most of the year, and Hiromu Takahashi for the junior division. So they were my two picks. Just before we move on to the next one, I will just say it was really good to see, and I love seeing all year every year with these awards how diverse the selections are, because you can type in whoever you want, and there were 39 wrestlers receiving votes in this category, so it's always cool, and across so many different promotions, it's always cool to see how broad people's tastes are who come to wrestling headlines. We do have a big WWE and AEW fan base, of course, but there's people who watch everything under the sun, names I had even heard of, let alone thought of as wrestlers of the year. So that was always great to see. 39 wrestlers receiving votes in this category before we move on to tag team.
Yeah, I will just give a shout out to the former Leo Rush. I think it's Leo Green or Leon Green, it's one of those two he's going by now. He's been, for me, absolutely killing it since he's gone, since he left WWE. He's now currently, I think, doing MLW stuff. Doing really well. So. Yeah, so a little shout out there just because, of course, great to see Rich Swann making it as well for the Impact stuff as well. Impact has, outside of the Tessa Blanchard stuff, an amazing year. Which is, really. Was that this year? It must have been. Yeah, brain fart.
It was.
It's just, this year it's warped all time. And you go back and look. Like Sam had to tell me, no, John Moxley Suzuki did happen. It was a match we watched. Was it?
That was this year.
Anyway, so moving on to the Global Indie Tag Team of the Year, and one of Imp's favourite tag teams from 10 years ago wins out in 2020. The Motor City Machine Guns and their 2009 Impact rivals, going up against the Young Bucks, hopefully soon. We've got the relationship with Impact. Again, that's one of my calls, is we get Motor City Machine Guns versus Young Bucks. Now that the Young Bucks are the team on top and everybody's favourite, whilst the Machine Guns are. That's not great. But yeah, the Good Brothers finishing second, the North afterwards. Great to see the North getting so high. And then GOD, who again might have been higher were it not for the circumstances where they've not really wrestled that much. And then there's the Briscoes as well, similarly affected. But was this tight, or is this as kind of decreasing as the graph shows?
Decreasing as the graph shows. Motor City Machine Guns 23.3%, the Good Brothers 21.4%, the North 16.6%, Gorillas 13 on the nose, and then the Briscoes 9.7%, so just below the 10 that it's listed them there as. This is a category that's been dominated by Impact, which is kind of cool to see. Getting, a number of veteran tag teams around and putting them against each other in different combinations is something that people want to see, and that's good for them. I honestly haven't watched any Impact beyond the show that Kenny Omega appeared at. So look, I can't say that I know a lot about what's going on there. I definitely know the names of these guys, and good, that's awesome that Impact are doing so well and have made such an impact in this category.
Hey. You've waited until an hour and 15 into the show.
planning that one for a week.
But yeah, for me personally, it was the North. I really, really like the North. For me, it's a massive shame that Ethan Page has left Impact now, because those two, there's rumours he's going to WWE. I say rumours going to WWE. All we know is he's left Impact. So the assumption is, is he getting snapped up?
Oh, really? I didn't know that. There you go.
Yeah, so his contract has run out and he's not renewed it. So you're hard to kill. You watch Karate Man versus Ethan Page. Little spoilers: Ethan Page is Karate Man. So that's going to be interesting to see how they do that. I think the entire storyline was like, he's like, no, I'm not Karate Man. Like, what are you talking about? No, I'm Ethan Page. So they've done a match where it's Karate Man versus Ethan Page. So really interesting to see how they do that. But yeah,
Wild.
Yeah. I mean, they shot somebody at the last pay-per-view, so the bar's been lifted for what random crap can they do. But yeah, it's great to see Impact getting this, because they have generally built up a relatively strong run of tag teams. To do this like every few years, because we were talking about Lucha Bros versus LAX. That was an Impact match not that long ago, and they slowly built up their division, and then they're so good they get snapped up. Then they build them up again, and they're in this era again of them having built up a great division, and immediately getting snapped up. So poor Impact's become the NXT of the indie scene, but it's generally it's great to see that many, and obviously Motor City Machine Guns, my favourite tag team of 2009. It's great to see them back together again. Having meandering a fair bit, Alex Shelley entering another favourite tag team of the Time Splitters. And yes, I know it's a Back to the Future thing, but I always think of Time Splitters from the PlayStation 2. One of my favourite video game series. That
was a good game.
yeah. I used to... no, tangent! I was about to explain why I enjoyed it so much. It's like, no, we've got enough awards as it is. So let's move on to the Global Indie Non-Wrestling Personality of the Year. This looks like a runaway and feels fully deserved. Because, again, this is a scene which has been massively hurt and damaged by the lockdown era. With the whole pandemic, just shows haven't been able to run. And when they have, it's been on a much smaller scale. And Don Callis obviously had his work cut out for him both, and now both in front of the camera and behind it. The relationship between AEW and Impact has got fans immediately excited, and it feels like the buzz hasn't died down yet, because that was my worry, that week one would be this big thing and people would tune into Impact, and then after that it would just fizzle back down to normal, because that's the momentum I've become used to in wrestling. It's still there. It's still there. The kind of excitement for Hard to Kill is built, and the kind of little teasers they're doing, integrating Impact into AEW a little bit more with the Good Brothers as well. But Don Callis, yeah, all the applause, whilst also doing commentary for Impact the entire time. So well done, Don.
Yeah, he did well in this award last year as well. I don't think he took it out from memory. I'd have to get my sheet up for that. But yeah, look, almost similar to the WWE, the way the WWE one panned out. You know, you've got a guy who's suddenly got themselves on the coattails of the hottest guy in the company. And, you know, Don Callis is more than holding his own in that. I think... John Moxley gave him the Wrestler of the Year. John Moxley gave him a great description when he said he felt like a used car salesman, which is exactly the vibe.
Yeah.
And I think the highlight for the year for me with Don Callis was when Kenny Omega had that match with Joey Janela, and he just picked up a microphone and started talking, and was talking while Kenny Omega was dominating and just brutalizing and embarrassing the Joey Janela on AEW Dynamite. 45.7% of the vote took this one from Josh Matthews, 15.4%, to Kevin Kelly, 7.8%, the New Japan commentator, Red Chuzono, the beloved, as you can see, he featured in this last year as well. The beloved New Japan referee, Red Chuzono, 5.1%. And then Gato coming in at 4.3%. Unfortunately, my pick for the year, Gino Gambino, did not come in to the top 5. Love some Gino. Justice for Gino. Poor fella couldn't get to, because of Australia's lockdown laws, couldn't get to quarantine laws and stuff, couldn't get out to be at Wrestle Kingdom this year, which was sad. So,
and even after
but,
he liked my tweet about the bingo card for the Evil Sonata match, even after that, I then forgot to play the game. I was too busy making notes. Like, oh no. Anyway, hopefully somebody played it. I got the word out there. But yeah, I can't remember who I voted for. But also, no Dick Togo. It was. I will say.
No Great Wire.
I really enjoyed Dick Togo's performance at the Wrestle Kingdom. It wasn't in 2020. It wasn't up for these awards. But especially his bump in the form of an elbow drop off the table, off the table. I thought that was amazing. I loved that. Yeah. To be fair, I was just generally surprised by how much I enjoyed that match. To be fair, I had to watch it in post because because I know you had internet problems whilst Wrestle Kingdom was airing. My internet cut out during Evil Sonada's entrances. Then I finally got the stream back, and then my laptop crashed. So then I had to get back, and I turned it back on for the ending. It's like, well, Jan's going to have to cover the hard work for this review. So I've not seen it. So that's a shame. But yeah, no Dick Togo. He's been a big character, but I can see why. Maybe Dick Togo doesn't get many nominations, but
not in a positive way.
Yeah.
the less said about him, the better. So let's move on to the match category. So
yes.
that first part was what I call like the wrestlers category, where we talk about the wrestlers, the rookies, the non-wrestlers. Now we're moving on to the matches. So to kick things off, the WWE singles match of the year, and coming in first, AJ Styles versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania with 20.8% of the vote. The Boneyard. Sorry, I was going to call it the last ride. The Boneyard match. Coming in second, Walter versus Ilya Dragunov, 12.1%. Then Finn Balor versus Kyle O'Reilly from TakeOver 31, 8.5%. Sasha Banks versus Bayley from Hell in a Cell, 6.3%. And the Men's Royal Rumble in at fifth, 6%. And I think you've got in the first two of these, two of the different ways that different companies tried to adapt and compensate for the lack of a crowd in the early days of COVID, before things like the Thunderdome, or before the having your talent in the audience essentially, and providing that atmosphere, where you've got the cinematic styles of AJ Styles versus The Undertaker, and then the just the bloody physicality of Walter versus Ilya Dragunov, where the slaps and chops just echo through an empty, barren arena, and that creates an atmosphere in itself, in its own way, that is very unique. And for that match, worked incredibly well. Didn't for most matches, in any company, to be honest. But for that match, the silence and the lack of a crowd almost enhanced the action that was taking place. But I probably wouldn't want to see every match devolve into that kind of thing, because it wasn't comfortable the whole time. It was a really interesting match to watch, that one. But coming in first, the AJ Styles versus Undertaker match from WrestleMania, the cinematic match, the Boneyard, probably the best of the WWE cinematic matches. I think it's fair to say, and it was the one that played things straightest, I think, which is, I don't know, for me, that was why it was successful. This kind of reminded me of, have you ever seen the movie the Expendables?
Yes.
Yeah, so those things with Stallone, Schwarzenegger, these great 80s, Jason Statham, these great 80s action stars, where they're essentially almost playing themselves, but using all the tricks of cinematic, that cinema has at their disposal: lighting, editing, special effects, choreography. They're able to sort of turn back the clock and make it feel like they're young again, almost, or even if not make it feel like they're young again, still make it feel like they're badass and can hold their own in a fight. And that's what they sort of did with this. This really reminded me of those movies. And before we knew it was the retirement, I was like, look, I'm fed up to the back, sick to the back teeth of me with Undertaker matches. But I was like, look, if this is what they're going to do for the Undertaker, then I think I can deal with it, because at least it's enjoyable, and it's not, him getting dropped on his head by Goldberg, or, something like that. But this was an enjoyable take on that character, and he sort of fits that style where, he is a bit larger than life, but he's a badass, and, this match was a badass match, and it fit his character, and fit his reputation, and I think, is a great match for him to go out on if we never see him again.
Yeah, And like for me, the match, it's one of those like Expendable. I think Expendable's quite a good one because it's silly, but it knows it's silly kind of thing. Which they didn't try too hard.
But also plays it straight as well.
Yeah, because the later ones tried to inject some form of humour
with the action.
Yeah, or with the because they did. For me, the big part of it is when WWE tries to put comedy in there, and there was comedy in this match, but because it was with what happening was played so straight that it was never too much. It was all within the flow of what was happening. Cough, cough. Stephanie McMahon bit at the Money in the Bank. Like it's just there's no sidebars for silly gag. It's just no. There's a thing happening, and we're going to get across the thing. And it's for me that's the only cinematic match that WWE have done this year that played it like that. I guess the closest is the I forgot what it's called, the fire match between the Fiend and Randy Orton. Like that's as in it's just the fight that's happening. And there's nothing else random happens. And for me, I was never as high on it as other people were. I think it was probably because I'd obviously watching Lucha Underground, watching Impact during those Hardy Compound days. It was a style of match that I'd watched and enjoyed at the time, but I'd also had my fill of. So when it came to this era, they're trying to think of new different ways to do it. And for me, this was a perfectly fine rendition of the cinematic match, but I've never been a massive fan of them. Like I've enjoyed them. Like the AEW one for me was, I enjoy the ones like the Stampede one from AEW. For me, that's more the style that I'll enjoy more. For me, I've never really enjoyed the WWE ones. This is easily the best one they've done, and all the others have been crap because they tried too hard. They WWE'd it. They put their humour in there. It was all too forced. It was for me, the Money in the Bank match is every single production thing critique I've got for WWE in one match. It's just every single one of them, one after the other. But this, they played it straight, and that helped it with wondrously helped it, and especially compared to the Fiend's one with the Funhouse. I feel like this really helps as such a strong contrast of cinematic style stuff. It was still good. Don't get me wrong, but I'd say that was a silly bit of fun. And then I go onto the internet, and people are going mental for it, and they're like, "Oh my god, that was amazing!" And that hype's not died down since. I was like, I mean, it wasn't. It was good. I enjoyed the silliness of it. But I'd always rate the in-ring stuff high because I'm a nerd. But So it wouldn't have been my favourite. I personally went for the men's Royal Rumble match purely because, and I know a lot of the hardcore fans went for Walter versus Dragunov. Just I've seen it in different voting for different sites, whatever, purely because of how hard hitting it was. And but for me, the men's Royal Rumble match hit on every single note fantastically. It's just like the Brock Lesnar stuff at the start kind of built up that first half. It got Drew McIntyre over, then gave him a big win in one match, which is fantastic. Just to see that they've managed to do that. Yes, they threw out a lot of your favourites to get Brock Lesnar over, but they put one of them over at the end of it. So I don't have that. I'm not going to crap on them for that. They tossed out a load of others to then put somebody over. They put someone over at the end of the day. I don't get the complaint. It's a weird one. But yeah, really, I thought that was a really, really strong Rumble. And for me, a good Rumble is always going to make the end of year lists. I will give a shout out to Becky Lynch versus Asuka 2 from the Royal Rumble. One that's just fallen off the face of voting earth by the looks of it. I don't know if it made the top 10.
Because it happened 5 years ago.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, that was.
I also love the Daniel Bryan Fiend match at that, the strap match. Yeah. That was a great. Yeah.
Both there were two championship matches that absolutely nailed it. Yeah. It's just that they feel like they were a lifetime ago. So it's like, God, that was. What is this year? It's so crazy. And 2021's not starting off any time normal in terms of the amount of stuff happening already. But yeah, really, really, really strong list. Weirdly for WWE, there was a long list. I just assumed I've really struggled for this, but then I was actually no, I've got a decision to make here. And because I really enjoyed Banks versus Bayley at Hell in a Cell as well. Again, a massive fan of the men's Royal Rumble match. I had an actual choice on my hands. And, I will say there was a lot of strong work, like consistent stuff, but I wouldn't say there was a definitive amazing match. Like, personally for me, I think I would put up Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre. Wait a second, I just remembered. I made it because I appeared on the One Nation Radio podcast. I've kept my top 10. I just realised.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. Oh yeah, Kevin Owens versus Roman Reigns from TLC.
Yeah, that was a great match.
Yes. So that was I was trying to make, I was like, I swear there's another one. But yeah, so there was an actual decision for me to make in an actual list. So kudos to WWE for, in this tough time, actually putting out really strong products in areas, I guess. Main events killed it, which means this list at the end of the year has actually got nominations. It's just great to see. Any more comments before we move on?
No, look, I would just say my picks were between the Men's Royal Rumble, which is was wild for me, given how much I hate Brock Lesnar and hate what he's done to what he did to the company for years. The fact that I had a choice of my hands of that just shows what a creative thing they did there. I think I ended up going with Walter versus Ilya Dragunov just for the sheer bloody physicality of it, which was intense. One that I thought would get more love but didn't was Seth Rollins versus Kevin Owens at WrestleMania. I really enjoyed that. And also Seth Rollins versus Drew McIntyre at the Money in the Bank. I really enjoyed both of those matches. Pretty big Seth fan, so those ones were it for me.
I feel like something
tag match.
Yeah, I would say I feel like something that really hurt Seth Rollins was he entered that zone of facing the same opponent for months on end with the Rey Mysterio, Dominic Mysterio stuff. That probably hurt his perception come the end of the year, just because by the end of it you're ready for a break, and he got it. So congratulations to Seth for having a little Seth. So let's move on to Tag Match of the Year. Right, this looks very close.
And you're gonna want me to read these out, Im.
Yes.
So, Men's War Game, obviously. I mean, you don't need a magnifying glass to see who won this. Men's War Game wins 35.8% of the vote, but we had a three-way tie for second with 8.4% of the vote between the Kabuki Warriors and the Golden Role Models from SmackDown. DIY versus Mustache Mountain from Worlds Collide, which man, crazy that just a throwaway network show has a match of the year candidate on it, but it was a great match. So speak if you haven't seen it, it's probably worth checking out. Speaks to the strength of it. And then the Women's War Game also equals second, 8.4%, and then coming in fifth, Undisputed Era versus the Broserweights from an NXT show on a Wednesday night, 8.1%. So very consistent voting across, apart from the first, which was, massively popular, the Men's War Game. This is the third year in a row. I'm going to have to call this the War Games WWE Tag Match, something like that. This is the third year in a row the War Games has taken it out. I mean, it's almost unfair to pit other tag matches against it because it's just so incredibly entertaining. With the setup of it, it's always long. There's always great spots. It's always violent. And, this year you had Pat McAfee going in there, in his second match of ever, I'm going to say.
Adam Cole in this,
like in his second match ever, and somehow didn't kill himself.
Because we were talking about how NXT's just... this is the first year we've seen NXT properly drop off of lists, and to see that they've still got the stranglehold on Tag Match of the Year because of War Games, it's... because it's something you said earlier as well, where in the tag scene there was consistency of teams, but there weren't really any standout matches you'd nominate for them. And another example...
no Street Profits, no New Day, no Hurt Business on here.
Yeah. For me, another good example would be Seth Rollins, Buddy Murphy versus the Mysterios. They had some really good matches, but at the end of the year, if you ask me what would be the match I'd nominate, I can't. Just because they had so many, and by the end of it, I was sick. I don't want to see it ever again. But they did have some really solid matches, especially on pay-per-views and things. And it kind of sucks that WWE ran it into the ground there to a point where I can't differentiate any match from any of the other 20 they had. Same with Street Profits versus Angel Garza and Andrade. Like, the joke was when they booked it again for SummerSlam, I think. It was like, here we go, match number 27. It's just ridiculous. And the joke, Apollo Crews only wrestled Hurt Business members for like 5 months straight, which is insane. I'm not kidding either. Like, genuinely, that was a stat put out by the different wrestling news sites because they tracked it. But yeah, personally, I was down on War Games this year. didn't particularly care for it, especially the women's one, because I looked at the women's one and I looked at the people in it. I was like, there's no way this will be bad. This will be and my only highlight from it, well, I guess two highlights were spots and moves. It felt like a match where they're trying to do cool stuff rather than having an actual story or match to tell. And last year, where they had that story of Dakota Kai turning on Tegan Nox and it just instigating that gave the match so much oomph and so much fire that it was my personal tag match of the year last year. And here, I didn't nominate either of them. Even though the men's was better and Pat McAfee, just all the applause. Just to pull out two performances like that. They told the story relatively well. It's just that I think I might have gone with Kabuki Warriors as golden role models purely because I really... It's another one of those where I really enjoyed the feud, and I remember really enjoying one of the tag matches. If the SmackDown one was that one, then I voted for the right one. If it wasn't, it's more emblematic of they had good matches, but they had so many, and I got bored of it, I can't tell you which one. So it's... emblematic of why it's so tight as well. Like, well, I can't remember which one it was, but maybe it's that one. So yeah, the War Games matches stand out. You're not going to get another one until next year. I think that helps.
Absolutely. My personal pick was, before we move on to the next one, was Broserweights versus Flash Morgan Webster and Mark Andrews, which was just like a, snort 3 lines of cocaine beating off the wall sort of tag team match on NXT that I watched as part of we did like a top man, Jekyll, who did the NXT Cool Points reviews. We did a top 5 matches of NXT and AEW after a year of the two programs' existence on cable TV, and that was one that he did in there, and it's just like, it's insane. They just don't stop the whole time, but it was very enjoyable. Broserweights versus Mark Andrews and Flash Morgan Webster.
And we've got the Dusty Classic, and they're building it up relatively well, so we might get a stronger showing tag team wise from NXT this year, especially with the UK teams coming back in a bit more permanently. Because we're doing veterans.
Yep.
They're my favourite NXT tag team by far. So I'm generally excited to see what they come up with in the current NXT world. Right, moving on to the WWE Feud of the Year. And I can't remember if it was the one I voted for. I want to say it was. I'm just completely blanking. It's weird. The first half of Bayley Sasha, where it was bubbling under the surface, and I can count it now because it's one of the things where it's like, this is WWE. Quite often the wrestlers might show a little bit of bubbling, or on a show they might show it. But until they're really hammering it home, I don't trust anything that it's showing.
And with these guys, it had been bubbling under the surface at different points for the last, 4 years.
Yeah. And to see it, for me, it's a story of two halves. Really enjoyed the first part, including the attack by Bayley, just turning on Sasha. But for me, the kind of build from there was completely WWE'd, where it was, we've got to run through it at an amazing pace because we've got Hell in a Cell, and your match has to happen at Hell in a Cell. And personally for me, the only reason it sagged was because I was watching Hangman Page and Kenny Omega at the same time. And for me, it was how invested I was becoming over the course of time in Hangman Page versus Kenny Omega. For me, that really made Bayley Sasha look nothing in comparison. Purely because they rocketed through it. As in, Bayley with a vicious attack and Sasha's back in 2 weeks. It's like, well, what's the point then? And she's back and she's attacking Bayley and set up the match at Hell in a Cell. The match, really, really good. It was technically what they showed on the SmackDowns leading up to pay-per-view wasn't bad. It was just that they rocketed through it at such a pace that I was like, you've taken your time with the first half and then you've blown through everything in 3 weeks. It's just like, it's going to be difficult for me to vote this. I can't remember what I voted for. It might have been Reigns Uso. I think I went with that one. Probably because it's like the opposite, where they really have kind of fleshed it out over the course of time and you're seeing that relationship evolve. I'd technically say it's still happening. You're seeing that relationship between Uso and Reigns evolve every single week in manipulation and the family and everything. Well, again, Bayley Sasha, it's good to see that afterwards there's been repercussions for Bayley and Sasha becoming champion and actually beating her. There's been consequences. Another thing that's been missing for past years of WWE. Bayley lost the title to Sasha in fashion and as like mentally and kind of card positionally start to struggle. Yes, all the applause for that. That's the year I'm in for with Jay White. I'm in for that year, and it's great to see just the consequences for losing. I really, really like it. Feud itself, loved the first half. It didn't fall flat, but I was kind of like, oh, you spent so long building it up to blast through it in 3 weeks. It's another one. But yeah, that's why I went with Reigns Uso.
Yeah, look, I went with Reigns Uso as well. Who would have thought that Jey Uso would be one of the breakout single stars of the year? Like, what an incredible feud that has been, and as you said, still is. And that was the great thing about. Well, we'll get to AEW feud of the year when we talk about Hangman and Kenny Omega and the Elite. Like, the teasing out of these things and drawing out of these things over a long period. And it's not doing the same thing every single week. It's slow, but it's slowly developing the relationships. And that's exactly what's happening with Reigns and Uso, which I loved so much. But look, as I said at the top, I really enjoyed Bayley and Sasha Banks, and I've been watching the pay-per-views, so I guess I haven't seen the muck that you've necessarily seen watching the week-to-week television. But I really enjoyed the dynamic, and I love that how when it has happened, the WWE has gone all in on it, and they have gone all behind Bayley and Sasha Banks, because at the start of this year, if you look at because unfortunately the women's division is a lot of it is the 4 horsewomen plus Asuka, you would look at those 5 women and say, well, look, even including Asuka in it, Bayley and Sasha Banks have really sort of started to lag behind. But this was the year where they got the rocket strap, got the pedal to the metal, because the other guys just weren't there. Charlotte and Becky Lynch just weren't there, and these guys proved exactly why they were the leaders of the women's revolution in many ways in what they did in Brooklyn. In Brooklyn 4, in Brooklyn, in their match, and then in the Iron Woman match, in the weeks and months afterwards, these guys were the leaders of that revolution at that point. They were the ones that brought things about and to a head in such a way, and they've proved why this year, and that's been really fantastic to see. As you said, they've suffered the WWE booking curse of, we've got a pay-per-view in 3 weeks. It's called Hell in a Cell. So guess what? You're having your blow-off Hell in a Cell match in 3 weeks' time after you've just started the conflict part of your feud. But, to give these guys credit, that was beyond their control. But the thing that was in their control was the match, and that was a bloody good match. And one of the better of the PG era pay-per-view, Hell in a Cell being a pay-per-view era Hell in a Cell matches. So they deserve all the praise they've got for this. Also, Randy Orton versus Edge, turning back the clock, great. Adam Cole and Pat McAfee, the ultimate carry job by Adam Cole. But Pat McAfee, has proved on the mic that he is more than capable of holding it down. And then Drew McIntyre versus Randy Orton coming in with 10.8% of the vote. Well and truly earned there. That was the biggest feud of Drew McIntyre's year. Well, probably maybe you'd say Brock Lesnar was a bigger, of more importance. But since he became champion, the Randy Orton one was the one where, he went back and forth a bit with it. And, well deserving of its place in the top 5 here. Before we move on to the AEW portion of the matches and feuds of the year.
Yeah, I would say, for me, for how good the match was at Hell in a Cell, where Bayley Sasha won, when my critique is it only took place over the course of a month. But it took place out only 1 month of the entire year, and it won. I mean, that's how invested fans were. So kudos to that. Also, Randy Orton.
I would be surprised if the feud, they include, the build-up to it, with them being a team as well beforehand. Because I would include that in my analysis of it. And my encompassing of it, if I'm going to vote for.
Yeah, with Paige and Omega as well. I'm definitely going to include all the little tidbits they were doing whilst they were a team. Also, Randy Orton nominated for 2 matches as well. It's not an award that exists outside of my head, but because I do it for football, I'll do random awards with my brother and things. Just worst purchase of the year, biggest waste of money, or who's the best who's the best player that came to the Premier League with the cheapest price, that sort of thing. For me, the veteran of the year, the veteran of the roster, who was the best of the year. And I think for years past, I've always given it to Hiroshi Tanahashi. It's just like, I can't really give it to anybody else, surely. However, this year, Randy Orton, the fact he's been nominated for two different ones, he has had an amazing year, and it's seemingly the year where it all mentally clicked for him in terms of being a vet. And he's finally, yes, maybe took the lockdown era to really hammer it home for not just him, but a lot of people in the promotion making the decisions, but finally focusing on the current era, and Randy Orton's doing an amazing job putting over the current stars. Yes, it's a bit of a to think apparently the current plan is Randy Orton Edge at WrestleMania. It's like, oh, so back to the well then. But the work he's done over the course of the year has been fantastic, and I can't remove, even though Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton was another feud that felt like it would never end, his work in it was fantastic. It's an odd one. But you know you're kind of plucking at straws when you have Randy Orton dress up as Splinter Cell to attack some legends. It's like, right, we probably need to end the feud now. Scraping the barrel a bit. It's just, oh, yeah. But he was fantastic. So, and the fact he's on two different feuds here shows that for me. Both amazing work with Edge at the start of the year when he could get crowd reactions, and then Randy Orton with Drew McIntyre as well. Amazing stuff, putting the current champion over. So, yeah, so I want to give a shout out for that, because he was on the list for the singles wrestler, but wasn't towards the top end, so didn't really talk about him. Right, so moving on to the AEW. And the AEW singles match of the year, for me, really difficult because there's so many, which is great to say. So Jon Moxley versus Kenny Omega winning out. I'll just give my quick opinion. I voted for Kenny Omega versus Pac from Dynamite. It's just one where, in the moment, I enjoyed it immensely, and that it's like a personal favourite. I don't know if I would rate it as the best match that AEW put out this year. I don't know if I could choose. It might be Cody Rhodes, Brody Lee, to be fair, on the TV show itself. However, just in terms of, like I was talking about with what was my favourite show from NXT AEW this week, I just watched it, I was content, I was happy, and it's difficult to top that really with wrestling when it just hits everything personally for you. And that's what Pac versus Kenny Omega did. Anyway, the stats, Sam, the stats.
Yep. Yeah. Look, there was a lot of different matches getting a look in here, and that's, the winner is only 16.1%. Jon Moxley versus Kenny Omega from Winter is Coming. I'd probably say it's fair to say there wasn't a blowaway match, which is why it's like this. Jon Moxley versus Chris Jericho from Revolution, 14.3%. You're getting an idea why Jon Moxley was the Wrestler of the Year from this, and you will further in the feud part as well. Kenny Omega versus Pac, 11.4% for their Iron Man match, their half-an-hour Iron Man match from Dynamite. Incredible show, that one. And Cody Rhodes versus Brody Lee, the dog collar match, 7.5%. One of the most violent matches that's been on cable TV in a long time, I would say. And then Kenny Omega versus Adam Page for Full Gear, 7.1%. Incredible, given that I feel like they were holding back, a 10-minute finishing stretch of amazingness that will come down the line, hopefully. But they still made the top 5 for this. Look, at the top match, I'm not surprised that this was happened, because it was, it's fresh in people's mind. It is the two biggest stars of the singles division this year, Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega. Not to say that Cody Rhodes and Chris Jericho, of course, are big stars of the singles division, but the two, most prominently pushed at the main event championship level guys this year, Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega, they're coming together, and it was certainly a very highly promoted match. I would say the thing that surprised me about this was I felt like the reaction to this was a bit divisive, in that everyone agreed it had a really good ending stretch, but some were a bit bored by the start of this match. But there's obviously enough people loved it that they voted it as their match of the year. As I said, my personal one was Jon Moxley versus Brody Lee for that incredible match at Double or Nothing. As I said, as described it before, the Terminator movie, match that they had together.
Not
what
like,
was your personal favourite to say?
So say Terminator movie match, not like WWE's RoboCop movie match. No.
Oh my!
But yeah, so yeah, my personal pick was Kenny Omega versus Pac. As I just said, for those 30 minutes, I was just a happy bunny. I just really, really enjoyed myself. But if I'm being a bit more analytical, probably Cody Rhodes, Brody Lee might have been my other pick. It was an insane year of quality, and to see that they put out that level of quality in this year, given the amount that's happened and the amount of like our top matches that happened in the lockdown era, where again what they've had to do. And yes, for me they were the ones to figure out the atmosphere first, how to do that better. And personally, part of the reason I enjoyed AEW so much this week is yes, NXT both brands put on a fantastic show. However, the inserted crowd noise for WWE shows, can't stand it. For football, for rugby, whatever sport they do it in, I cannot stand inserted crowd noise. For me, it's fine if it's ambience. If it's ambience in the background, for me, it's fine. If you're putting in "This is awesome" chants, I'm gonna struggle, especially if you're trying to get reaction as well. Because I feel like all sports, have really struggled with playing the sound clip for when the thing happens in terms of reacting to it, like the crowd going, "Oh!" And WWE have tried this themselves with like a big kick or a choke slam or something, and they meant to be the crowd reacting like, "Oh, that was amazing." However, the timing is just off every time. It never works. And like Rhea Ripley versus Gonzalez, the big Hoss match, then they piped in "This is awesome" chants, and my immediate critique was, at least pipe it in from a crowd of this size. You're doing it for like a 15,000 full arena for this NXT show. It's just like, I don't get it. Like with the Thunderdome, I can somewhat take it. I'm not a massive fan of it, but I can take it somewhat because they're trying to portray a big full audience, and that's what all the screens are kind of there to show. They're pretending the screens are making that noise. At least that is there. When I'm watching NXT, who's making that noise? It doesn't make any sense. But AEW is all organic, and for me that really, really helps in terms of the atmosphere and the matches. And I think in terms of shows of the year, you'll see that with AEW, it's just something about the atmosphere they generate, because it is genuinely made there, and the wrestlers who are the fans at ringside, they're not controlled to the production level of WWE, where it's like a crowd at the top of the pops. That's an old reference. It's like a live, it's like a live music show for TV where they're like, dance now, cheer now, clap, and it's like that, or like a recording of a sitcom or whatever. WWE feels like that, and AEW is so organic with it, where it's like, you're the baddie guy, you're the baddie side, you're the goodie side, but just watch the show and respond however you want. It's like, oh, it adds so much.
Now you bring it up, we almost should have given an AEW crowd member of the year, because we think some of the wrestlers have put in some work. Man, Austin Gunn, week in, week out, he is up for 2 hours straight, just cheering and clapping. Man, when I go to a match, when I go to a wrestling show, I have to go to the toilet, I have to go and get a beer, I sit down, I look at my phone, I check my Twitter, I maybe start a chant for a bit, and I maybe, try and yell something, heckle the wrestler or whatever. But man, Austin Gunn is he's a machine of generating atmosphere and crowd noise. So, unofficial award of the year before we get to tag match of the year, Austin Gunn, the crowd member of the year for AEW.
I partly drifted off topic purely just because...
Sir Pentico as well.
Oh,
Sir Pentico's always seems to be out there as well, doing his thing. And, he got his just desserts this week for it.
But I was like, when they do have some of the bigger names there as well. Like, I think one of my favourite things was MJF, just a bit bored, like drinking, playing games at ringside, betting on the matches. That's what he was doing.
Betting on it? Yeah, him and Sean Spears betting on it.
That was great. Yeah. Let's move on as I see the file size for this increase, because we got to 2 hours. Let's go to the AEW Tag Team Match of the Year. So I think we kind of spoiled this earlier, where it's like, we will be talking about the match from Revolution. Because for me, I didn't even have to think about it. Which is for a match that happened in February, because when I talk about WWE, I'm having to remind myself of matches that I enjoyed that happened. But with this match was so good. where for me at the end of the year it still wasn't even in question. It was, I think for me, I went in with high hopes, specifically because I saw who was involved and because I'd seen those Young Bucks Golden Lovers matches, which were for me just peak incredible. I need to go back and watch those matches. They were insane for me. But so my bar was high, and they exceeded it. It was just and this is where the teasers really began for the character work in there as well. Just all of the people who put the Young Bucks into a certain category, this showed every single one of them up, just for what in terms of storytelling, in terms of character work, in terms of working on the body. Like for me, the biggest I've never understood that of the Young Bucks don't sell anything. It's like my biggest critique is Matt keeps selling his back. That's my biggest critique of them. Is apparently it's a real injury, which is why he keeps doing it. But it's
that is something that people who don't actually watch Young Bucks matches say about the Young Bucks.
Yeah. Because I always found it interesting because that's my biggest critique of them is. No, if anything, my critique is it's too much on one thing. Again, if it's a real life thing, there's not really much you can do about that. But yeah, amazing match. I can't praise this match enough. It looks like second and third might have been a little bit tight, but and maybe fourth and fifth as well. But we've got a runaway in a way.
Yeah, 27.7. I'm surprised it didn't run away by further because this match was incredible. For me, I think this is by my match of the year across all promotions. I think I've recently rewatched it, and there's just so much going on character-wise on all fronts here. 27.7% in total was what it got. FTR versus the Young Bucks, their long-awaited final meeting, and their love letter to tag team wrestling, which is what I think this was. It got 18% even, coming in second. The Inner Circle versus the Elite, the Stadium Stampede, 15.9% of the vote. And then the incredible street fight, Proud and Powerful versus the Best Friends from Dynamite. One of the best street fights ever, and it speaks to the strength of the tag team division in AEW. That this match, which was I believe the first 5-star rated empty arena match by Dave Meltzer, and say what you want about Dave Meltzer, but his ratings, I feel like they mean something, particularly in AEW. Everyone's rating is something, but he's been doing it for long enough that the fact that this was the first of the empty arena matches to get it does mean, I think that holds some water, and it only got 6.8% of the vote because that's how good the tag team division in AEW is. And then Adam Page versus Kenny Omega versus FTR at All Out coming in fifth. But yeah, look, so much going on in this match, story-wise, between Adam Page and Kenny Omega, in terms of their ongoing dynamic and story, what Adam Page is going through, wanting to, this is the greatest thing he's ever achieved, and his desperation to hold on to it. And then the Young Bucks, the dynamic even between those two, of, one of them is more fired up than the other one and is more pissed off than the other one about this. These aren't two of the same people. These are two individual people in that. And yeah, look, this is, I think I hold this up with the Shield 6-man versus the Wyatts, and with the Golden Lovers versus the Young Bucks as the three best tag team matches I've ever seen. Incredible. Doc and I were basically after at the end of year thing, the Doc Chad Matthews and I were just going back and forth, text messaging about what we thought, and we brought up this match, and he was thinking, I want to put this into my all-time ratings, and see where it ends up, because he, it's just going to start knocking them off one after the other. And we're comparing this to the Shield versus Wyatt 6-man, and I think this probably has got the edge over that, and that was the highest rate, one of the highest rated tag team matches in his top 100 matches and rivalries of all time. So, this is just such an incredible match. Action and the crowd, man. This is why we miss crowds. Like the crowd, the way they went mental when Kenny Omega kicked out of the Golden Trigger at 1. The way the crowd just rise. It's just it makes your spine tingle, and as good as the audience has been in for AEW, as good as the clap crowds in NJPW have been, nothing will, there is something special about having just a hot arena rise for something like that. So, yeah, I won't say anything more about this, but I was the only thing that surprised me about this award was how I thought it'd be 50%. I thought this would be even more blow away.
yeah, it was easily my match. Like you were saying, like didn't even have to consider it. It's not even close. This easily the tag team match of the year. Amazing stuff.
Yep.
And moving on to the AEW feud of the year, and I would call this surprising, but maybe it's showing as to why these two were feuding for so long, for them to do this well on this list. Chris Jericho and Orange Cassidy winning this out. Personally, not mine. I struggled with it. I wouldn't say I hated it, because I don't really hate anything on AEW, really. It's and I don't have anything that gives me that guttural, oh, for God's sake. I don't know, and nothing's given me that reaction on the show. But I would say I didn't get into this feud. The matches were fine enough come the pay-per-views, like they gave me a bit of fun and joy. But it was Chris Jericho jumping on something that was white. And if it's white hot, go with it. And it's won this award, so obviously it was white hot for a reason. Orange Cassidy is over. Don't then not feature him because a few people don't see him in that way. It's like, no, clearly he is. He's won this award for AEW Feud of the Year with Chris Jericho. But this one is one that seems to descend without that big of a gap between the numbers.
Yeah, lots of different ones getting votes here. 14.7% was the winning margin, was the winning percentage for Chris Jericho versus Orange Cassidy. So, for a lot of the other ones, we've been talking high 20s, early 30s, even some in the 40s. So this is a tight award, this one. John Moxley performed very strongly. His feud with Chris Jericho that I spoke about earlier, 12.4% was his highest rated. Then the feud with Eddie Kingston, the incredible personal one, 10.2%. Then the Elite, this was the one I voted for. We've probably spoken enough about that as to why we'd pick that 8.9%. And then Cody Rhodes versus MJF, I thought this deserved to be higher. 7.8%. Incredible feud with some of the segments in this with the lashings. That was one of the best segments of television I've seen. And then the week after the steel cage match between Rhodes and Wardlow. If anything, the only weak point of this feud is the match between Rhodes and MJF.
Yeah, that's probably why.
Which was probably a step down from the match that Rhodes had with Wardlow, and what was building into it. There's so much going on character wise in that, and then other ones that got all of the John Moxley feuds got votes. So his one with Kenny Omega, the feud he had with MJF also got votes, and then the Cody Rhodes versus Brody Lee was also a high winner, a high point getter as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of strong feuds in AEW. It's this is the strength of the promotion, right? This is its ability to tell stories ongoing, and honestly, I think Chris Jericho versus Orange Cassidy, this wouldn't have been my pick. I would have picked a number of feuds above that, but I think the John Moxley vote, for example, got split across a number of different feuds. And I'll pass this on to you. I call the Jericho Orange Cassidy feud divisive, but only because some people really into it and other ones like it's fine, I guess. I wouldn't say it verges on hate for me. I've seen some people just cannot stand Orange Cassidy. Again, I don't have that strong emotions towards wrestling, really. Aside from when I see Goldberg return again after what happened last year. When I see Goldberg defeat The Fiend in Saudi Arabia, that got me. I'll be honest. And the Fiend Seth Rollins match, obviously that got everybody. It's just
you thought that was the bottom imp.
I had my little breakdown after watching that. I was just like, I've put loads of effort into setting up stuff for the YouTube thing to start doing that. At that point, there was no video. It was just a blank screen. I put loads of effort in, and then for what? For this? That broke me. But of course, I wrote off the Saudi Arabia shows after the first one. And I think, even for wrestling headlines, we stopped covering them. As in terms of these videos and reviews and things. We only have a review for the Greatest Royal Rumble. And the Pond guys did that one, Right Side of the Pond. They did a special, plugged Right Side of the Pond special 2 hours into the show. But Yeah, really, really strong lineup of feuds from AEW to just digress. A really strong list of feuds for AEW, and maybe that's kind of why this one might have jumped up a bit, because those who enjoyed it really enjoyed it, whilst people like me, I'm split across so many different ones. And with John Moxley, it was his entire run rather than one thing in particular as well, which is in terms of winning an award like this, it means he's going to win Wrestler of the Year, which is pretty prestigious as it is. But Feud of the Year is going to be split because people will have their own individual favourites.
Yep. Just before we move along, Imp, I just noticed there was a question in the YouTube chat to Ed Dead, are there women's awards? And look, sorry, Ed Dead, if you asked that like half an hour ago. We've only just got to it. What I do, so I'm the one that curates these awards and sort of controls them, for lack of a better term. Definitely happy to take suggestions. I've always put the women and men in the same categories. So, for example, like as we saw, Bayley and Sasha was the feud of the year. They beat out Roman Reigns and Jey Uso, and their Hell in a Cell match was one of the strongest ones. A couple of years ago, Becky Lynch won the Wrestler of the Year, and her match with Charlotte Flair actually won the Match of the Year. So we put them all in together, and I guess the reason I do that is just because, particularly since the Women's Revolution, is these guys are on the same footing. I don't, I'm not going to separate them. I'm conscious of having too many awards. Look, if there's enough people who want it, hit me up. If you want a separate women's award, by all means we can. But I kind of like putting them in together, particularly that year where Becky Lynch won. She was the deserved winner, and having her crowned over all of the men as well as the women, I thought was a big achievement and was the rightful thing to happen, because she was the hottest wrestler of that year. She was the hottest wrestler at that time, and that was probably one of the best matches of the year. So, that's why I put them together, because, if the women are excellent enough, and in many cases they are, I think it's worth having them against the men to show that. That's my take. But yeah, look, as I said, this is the People's Award. I only get one vote. I just control all the categories and stuff. And if there's enough people who want it, by all means, I'll split things up. But that's where I stand for the moment.
And of course, in terms of
moving along,
in terms of numbers of awards, we're over 2 hours in, and we're going for the Keeping It Strong style crown. Come over for your James.
You must really love listening to us, Ed Dead.
So next up is the global / indie singles match of the year, and in terms of again, these numbers very tight. For the global indie, there's just such an amount of matches you can vote for, and normally for these awards, it's either, again, you get people voting for matches who don't really watch it, or people who do watch a lot of indie wrestling and could vote for anything. Because this is where you get into the breadth of fandom, where there's some people who only watch Joshi, there's some people who only watch PWG type American indie stuff, and then there's the Impact fans, the Mega Impact fans, me, the number one New Japan fans. It's such a variety. However, the match I voted for won, so I can't complain too much. But again,
this was the New Japan January Awards. Every single one in the top 5 was New Japan wrestlers and happened in January of 2020. It's all Wrestle Kingdom, or the Rev Pro High Stakes one that comes in 4th is also happened in January, but just in Rev Pro between 2 wrestlers who wrestle for New Japan. So yeah, Kazuchika Okada versus Kota Ibushi, the main event for Wrestle Kingdom Night 1, came out first in 12.7%. This was another really close one. Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Chris Jericho. This was leading for a while, actually. 10.9% from Night 2 of Wrestle Kingdom. Will Ospreay versus Hiromu Takahashi from Night 1. 10.3%, just like about 3 or 4 votes in that one, I believe. Came in 3rd. Will Ospreay versus Zack Sabre Jr. from Rev Pro High Stakes, 6.9%. And then Kazuchika Okada versus Tetsuya Naito, the main event for Night 2, which was my personal pick for Match of the Year, because from Wrestle Kingdom, 6.6%. I wanted to just lay out a few other ones as well. So outside of New Japan, the matches were Tessa Blanchard versus Sami Callihan, came in 6th with 6.3%. Then Kenny Omega versus Laredo Kid from AAA Mania for 6.1%. And Thunder Rosa versus Priscilla Kelly got 3.1% and came in next. The total matches that got votes was 42 different matches over 14 different promotions. So yeah, once again, as Imp said, massive breadth of things here. Obviously, the New Japan is probably the most high profile and known for, this is their strength. This is what their strength is meant to be, is putting on these matches. And the Wrestle Kingdom brand did not let down in 2020 with some incredible stuff going on there. As you said, Imp, I'll let you talk about as Okada versus Ibushi, but for me, Okada versus Naito, this was long-term storytelling, absolutely the pinnacle of it. When Tetsuya Naito, I've never heard a crowd hotter than when these two were trading. And when he went up to hit the Phoenix Splash that's previously been and represents his past persona, which failed and was what cost him the match against Okada last time, and everything that represents, which we don't have time to get into. When he hit that, the crowd went mental, and they were on the edge of their seat when he went up for it. And then when he hit that, that was pretty much my moment of the year. And at that point, you knew he was going to win. But this match was incredible physicality, incredible athleticism, and just a long-term story getting its big payoff and really emotional payoff. That was my match of the year. Imp, I'll let you talk about what the winner did.
So for me, the only difference between the two, because Okada and Naito is my kind of, I guess, long-term storytelling big payoff match of the year, without question. I'm assuming Kenny Omega Hangman Page is the next recipient for that, even if it does happen next year. It doesn't have to. keep telling it. But the fact it took 4 years to Naito's rematch, then he lost. Then it was another 2 years before he got it again, and he had to go through this the double match stuff. And the crowd was so hot, because I went back to watch after I watched Wrestle Kingdom this year. There's something about the atmospheres, even though it's just the clapping crowds. There's something about the atmospheres for both main events in the Ibushi Naito and Ibushi versus Jay White, where I just wanted to go back and kind of just live in that atmosphere as I went back and watch the matches. So I thought I'd go back and watch the main events from the past couple of years as well. And immediately it's like, it pales in comparison. It's just as the crowd sing Naito's name, it's just something special, especially especially from Wrestle Kingdom 12 as well, where I thought Wrestle Kingdom 12 would be the peak. I think at the time we described it as like the Rock and Austin. It felt like that, as in the two biggest stars of this era clashing, and the crowd are so into it. And the fact that 2 years later, into it just as much. The atmosphere is incredible for it, and because again, there's something about the atmosphere at Wrestle Kingdom 15, especially with the main events. I felt Wrestle Kingdom, and then I went back and watched it, from last January. It's like, bloody hell, it's something else when they're that over. It's just because the only reason I went for Ibushi Okada was because I was such a fan and absolutely adored. I guess it was like when you watched Ibushi versus Tanahashi, where it was the moment where Ibushi snapped and became that just machine. And it was just the emotional reaction I had to that. It was just like, nothing in wrestling gave me that feeling over the course of the year. Him bringing it back for Wrestle Kingdom this year didn't give me the same reaction, but the first time seeing it at Wrestle Kingdom last year, it's just like, it's like the match went to another level because of that. I wouldn't even say it was a better match than Naito Okada. It's just that it gave me that reaction. I was like, this is incredible. Like, I love it. Jay White Ibushi did give me that reaction of, oh my god, this match. It's just been on a match that gives me an emotional ride. Like when I was playing The Last of Us, and I was just like, no game has given me this emotional ride before. Like, I feel like I'm meant to be tired, type of thing. No games try to give me that feeling. I purposely do it. Whilst both Ibushi main events for me, and not in terms of like the Jay White one this year and the Okada one, felt like they gave me that feeling on purpose, and then you kind of click into God mode. It's like, amazing. That's why I voted it my man of the match. Man of the match? Football's in my head. Forest are playing today.
We need to get through these awards, Ip.
Forest kick off at 12 if I'm right. In an hour. I need to get ready. I need to cook anything. Let's move on to the Global Indie Tag Match of the year. And I think this was my vote, if I'm right. I might have gone with the AAA match of the Lucha Bros. I don't think I did, though. But yeah, as I said earlier, I really rated the North. I think I gave them my indie tags thing of the year, and this was for me their biggest. When I say biggest showcase, this would have been the match of theirs that most people watched. and because of Motor City Machine Guns, and I jumped in on it, and yeah, there's nothing else really to say. This was my vote. Great to see the North getting the recognition.
Yeah, I'll just quickly run down it because, as I said, I didn't really watch Impact that much. Motor City at all. Motor City Machine Guns versus the North took the day 26.5%. Motor City Machine Guns versus the North versus the Good Brothers versus Alston and Fulton. The 4-way match from Bound for Glory came in second with 20.9%. Dangerous Techers, this was my vote. Dangerous Techers, Sabre Junior shirt. Dangerous Techers versus the Golden Aces from Dominion came in 12.1%. Lucha Bros versus Ginettas. Do you want to have a run at that one in, please?
From
Triple A.
Air. I said that really Irishly. The Air.
Yeah. You can hoist yourself on your petard with that one. 9.1%. And then Finjuice versus God from Wrestle Kingdom got 7%. I mean, as I said, kind of with the Tag Team of the Year awards, this is just really solid tag team booking. You get some veteran tag teams, some veteran hands into the tag team division, and you put them in a bunch of different interesting situations and interesting stipulations, and you're going to get good stuff. And that's played out with these, with Impact taking the top 2 spots in this. So good for Impact with that.
Yeah, not really much more to add. Good for Impact. It's great to see the North getting that recognition. All right, moving on to Global Indie Feud of the Year. And again, a little bit of a recency thing. For me, it's got to be Okada versus Naito, just because of... Technically, it didn't happen all over the course of this year. However, because it was the culmination, did happen this year. Again, for feud of the year, and this is a 6-7 year long feud, and this was the payoff this year. Yeah, for me, it's got to be that. And I don't know if it's more just because of the name of Will Ospreay, or people genuinely are really into it. I don't know which one it is. But that would have personally been mine. But it's great to see little things like Jay White Ibushi with Jay White actually winning the briefcase, like, to shock everybody. That was a cool moment as well. Just elevated that feud. And Eric Young, Rich Swann, generally surprising loads of people in Impact as well. So Impact up there once again. For me, the one I'm really happy to see is Prazzo versus Jordan Grace. Really happy to see that one go up, because there's been Impact have received a lot of plaudits for their women's division, and it's great to see that one of the feuds especially has really clicked. Because for me, my thing has been they've got a great division. It's just that creatively, it's still Impact, so it's a bit weird. And I've always struggled to get into their style of writing and booking stuff, but I can enjoy the pay-per-views and matches. So it's great to see they're actually hitting home, and with a women's storyline that's really, really working. Especially in the wake of the whole Tessa Blanchard stuff, where they put so much effort and cards into that pile and it turns sour. So it's great to see they're able to build the blocks up once again. But that doesn't mean Ospreay Okada's bad. I personally felt like there was so much quality elsewhere, and I cannot not give the award to the 7-year long story paying off. Anyway, your takes, SirSam.
Yeah, so Ospreay versus Okada, 19.3% of the vote. I think that got it just because it was a really hot feud. These guys have a lot of history together, and so when Ospreay turned on Okada and formed his own faction, you just know that that's going to result in something big. Technically, in 2020, these guys hadn't had their blow-off match because that happened this year at Wrestle Kingdom. But, they had a really good match at the G1 and set up that story that was heading for Wrestle Kingdom. So fair play to them getting the top one. Tetsuya Naito versus Evil. In the moment that Evil turned on Tetsuya Naito, amazing way that, when Naito went up for the fist bump and Evil hit it with a too sweet. That was a really cool moment. The matches, though, chuck them in the bin. Get it out of here. I love stories, but the matches have got to be good. And the matches between these two were abysmal. Just really poor, really boring stuff. My pick was Minoru Suzuki versus Tetsuya versus Man, that would have been a great way for Tetsuya Naito to go instead of versus Evil. Versus Minoru Suzuki versus Shingo Takagi in the never open weight division. I just love the fire between these two, and Shingo Takagi having to overcome the boss of essentially the boss of the Never, Minoru Suzuki might not always be the champion of the Never Openweight division, but if you're going to have a strong style match, he's the boss of it. So he ultimately had to overcome that, and they traded the thing back and forth in some incredibly physical matches. So that was my personal pick for feud of the year.
Also, not a bad time to plug the G1 Climax reviews that myself and Sam have done for the past couple or few years. And just a reminder of who our winners were for the MVP. Shingo Takagi ran away with it for our G1 Performer of the Year, and kicked off 2021 in style, strong style, with Jeff Cobb, the big
very strong style.
So I just want to give a shout out to Shingo Takagi for a unique singles award to give out. Right, so we've got 3 more awards to go, and then we're all allowed to go to the toilet and have a life, and some go to bed. So it is the cinematic match of the year. There should be no surprise given
just
that...
Before you get into it, Imp, just before you get into it, I just wanted to introduce... This is the first time we've done cinematic match of the year. I wanted to include it for 2020 because I feel like it's been... Obviously, as we said, there's been cinematic matches before. It's going back as far as Gold Dust versus Roddy Piper back at WrestleMania, I want to say 11, 12, one of those. 14. I'm gonna settle on 14. Hit me up later if you know if it's different. But look, it's been the match of 2020 in terms of it's been the first time that it's been really on the big stage, and both of the major promotions sort of put it on a big stage and put it over in a big way. So I wanted to make an award specifically for that. And the WWE match of the year, the Boneyard match, was the one that won, 50.9%. I was surprised how lopsided this was. My personal pick was the Stadium Stampede, which came second with 21.3% of the vote. And particularly given where the promotion of the year skews, I'm really surprised the Boneyard ran away with it this way. But I guess people loved it being played straight down the line because this probably was the straightest of all of them in terms of not mucking about. Stadium Stampede was a mix of sort of that physicality and action and the humor. They definitely had the humor in it, and for me that was what made it so good, particularly at that point of the year. I think everyone remembers because everyone was there, but in May things were just bleak everywhere in the world, and this was just like a little beacon of joy and happiness that lived in this absurd universe that was just so fun. It was a fun 45 minutes, and it was exactly what was needed at the time. And I've gone back and watched it, and it's still good to this day. The Firefly Funhouse match, there was debates at the time as was this really a match or not, but it was definitely something cinematic. The WWE deserves credit for this, for how they just let Bray Wyatt, go so, really, really drill into the John Cena character and really, hung, draw, and quarter it for all it's worth. And good on John Cena for being involved in that as well, letting his character really be assassinated completely in that. And that got 10% of the vote. And then the Elite Deletion between Matt Hardy and Sammy Guevara, 4.5%. And I'm so glad this came in because I want to talk about it. The greatest match ever. Didn't even get top 3, and to be honest, the reason that this thing pissed me off so much is because they did this as a corporate thing to get over, so that when people could Google what the greatest match ever is, this is what will show up. And what is the greatest wrestling match ever? WWE fans should be equally as pissed off about this as non-WWE fans, because the greatest wrestling match ever is something that should be decided by fans and critics, not by a company. And they put that out there, and I'm so glad that by their hubris, they got hung by it. It didn't even win the match of the year for WWE. It's not even in the top 3 cinematic matches. So they deserve all of the... I'm never not going to just hand wave the fact that they did this for their own marketing purposes and took something that should be a fan and critics thing and made it something that they decide. So, bollocks to them. Congratulations for the Boneyard match, which we have talked about.
Yeah. I will just quickly add on, because of course we've got 2 more awards, I think, to come after this one. We'll just say, for me, if it had happened earlier, why can I never remember the name of it? What's the fire match called? They set opponent on fire. What's it called? Inferno match. Well, I can't remember that word, inferno. But yeah, I was like embers, flames. No, inferno. but yeah, for me, the inferno match would probably knock the greatest match ever off the list if it had happened earlier. It's because, of course, the match happened after this list. These votes had already, a lot of them have been cast, so it's not really going to climb that high. I ranked that as one of, maybe. It's up there with the Boneyard match in terms of WWE playing a match straight in that cinematic edited style. It's an odd one, because that one was half live, half recorded stuff. So I don't know what you class that as. As it's, of course, the big set pieces were all cinematic, all pre-recorded and stuff. So it's a lot like the Greatest Wrestling match in that sense, where it's all edited down and together. But I generally really enjoyed the Inferno match, whilst I didn't get... Well, Greatest Wrestling match ever was... That was them throwing all of the things that the WWE kind of creative world think is great, and they put it all into one match, and it is sports entertainment the movie. Is that match. However, it also screamed this was a tagline we had booked, and we'd gotten good and everything for a Saudi Arabia show, which this name makes a lot of sense for a Saudi Arabia show. However, then everything happened, and this show took place when a Saudi Arabia show would take place. It was that month, it was that time of the year. And for me, it was like, well, what do we do now? And maybe they had planned Randy Orton Edge at Saudi Arabia, and then they had to come up with a way to use that tagline and do that match, but you can't leave the Performance Centre. So highly edited, amazing. I can't remember what some of the stuff they plugged was insane, like amazing audio experience, things like that. I'm not kidding about those taglines. It was a weird one, but yeah, we've already talked about all the other nominees, and I agree with Sam on like every point of them. No surprise, Boneyard match won after it won Match of the Year. It's one of those. After it was, yeah.
We have missed two nominees I wanted to mention. Firstly, one of my favourites, which I'm sad didn't make it, but completely logically I know the reason it didn't, was Nick versus Matt Jackson from BTE. Episode 200 was really joyful. But I feel like everyone who would have voted for that would have voted for the Stadium Stampede, so that's why it's not there. And finally, before we move on to the industry awards, shouts to the person who voted for the Boner Yard match. That's BONER yard match. Now, either there's something doing the rounds on Pornhub that I have not seen, or that person really enjoyed the Boneyard match.
Oh, no, so that was Gallows and Anderson's, I've forgotten what it was called, but they did a crap special of...
oh, really?
Yeah, so...
Oh, damn, I haven't seen... Was that on Talking Shop Mania?
Yes, so I think it's the first one, that one, and they did the Boner Yard match, yeah. So, I recommend...
I didn't know that was a real thing.
So if you're
I was just making a joke of it.
If you're into Anderson and Gallows, like, silly style of humour, check out the Boner Yard match. Yeah, and yes, they do...
That's a risky Google.
If I might do turn up as like Chad Too Bad and Sex Ferguson having their big blow off rivalry, I think if I'm right, there was like a stipulation that they had to lose a body limb or something to win the match. As in, like, seriously stupid stuff. But if you like their humour,
okay, I thought that was because in the past, like, for example, someone in Feud of the Year put Joe Biden versus Donald Trump, so you do get a few jokers in the pack, and I thought I'd shout out the Boneyard match, but turns out that's actually something that happens. So there you go. Let's move on, Imp.
To the shift gears to the industry awards. So first up is the Brand of the Year. Again, fan voted. Yes, myself and Sam will have voted, but that's 2 out of hundreds. Yep. We have like no sway.
Over 700 votes.
Yeah. So So I wanted to say this before. I don't know if Sam's just have to put a clarifier just in the columns. Like, we know what's going to happen. We know the column's going to get. This is fan voted. So it doesn't matter if myself or Sam happen to have voted AEW. But it's kind of a runaway again. And for me, the big drop off.
This is the highest percentage of any of the highest percentage of any of the awards, 61.5% for the AEW.
Which is interesting, just to say. Normally, how split and divided I say relatively even the AWWE split is for the wrestling headlines. To see it run away this much.
Yeah, well, to go into a bit of the history of this award, obviously, pre 2019, we actually had a WWE brand of the year, which NXT dominated, and then non-WWE brand of the year, which New Japan dominated. Then in 2019, I decided to unify with AEW coming to play. That changed a lot of the awards, but I decided to just do a brand of the year. Last year, WWE won it by about 10%, and this year, AEW have absolutely crushed them. So what I suspect has happened here is AEW's probably picked up a number of people from New Japan, such as myself, who've, were not as enchanted with the main event scene over there and have decided to vote for AEW because of, all the reasons we've talked about this podcast. And as we talked about, one of the trends for WWE was NXT going off the boil a bit. And so I think there's some of the people who've previously voted for WWE, or last year voted for WWE because of NXT doing so well at the start of the year. And I think it's fair to say that NXT kicked off better than, for the end of 2019 when it went to USA. It was at a good point and a better point than what it ended up this year. So I think some people who voted for WWE last year have switched over to voting for AEW, just based on where the percentages have fallen. Outside of those big two, you've got 4.4% for New Japan. Real tough year outside of the major wrestling promotions. A lot of them had to go on hiatus. So you've got, Impact Wrestling 1.9%, NWA 1.1%. Lots of companies got votes in this one, but it's a tough year outside of those two major companies that did produce content all year, for better or worse. We'll say.
Yeah.
I don't have time to get into the politics of it all, but these are the two major promotions. They're the two most high profile promotions, and they're the two that produce content all year round, and. We've kind of documented over the course of this why we voted for AEW and why we think most people would have voted for that over WWE.
Yeah, and because I don't know if a lot of it will be influenced by the handling of this past year. Because I'm currently in disbelief that the football's still going ahead, in the UK, where London's had 1,000 cases in a day type of thing. As in, genuinely, I'm in disbelief. Football's not been cancelled. It's not that important. But when we're going to rearrange the fixtures, it's not important. It's fine. It's not that. That's not a concern. So with both AWWE, I feel like neither should have. They should have broken up. As in, they shouldn't have continued. Especially when you look at. I feel like WWE damaged a lot of their kind of in terms of brand of the year stuff. Their handling of it, the number of outbreaks specifically in NXT, was just mind-boggling. What are you doing, kind of thing. Well, I say mind-boggling. You look at the wider kind of political world of America. It's understandable how this could have happened, but in terms of the product itself, AEW managed consistency, and they figured it out very quickly. Whilst WWE have constantly tried to come up with the biggest, flashiest way to do it, they tunneled away for a bit. They went into hibernation with the PC. And then they've exploded with the Thunderdome. And I was a little bit sad to see the current Thunderdome setup is identical to the previous location. You have a baseball field. Why aren't you taking advantage of this? It's so strange. I don't get it. They're trying to make every arena look the same. And why would you do that with a baseball field? It's really strange. Compared to what we've seen with AEW, where they kind of adapt into the arena that they're in. Something like that.
I will say briefly, I do think AEW, for the record, I do think AEW handled the pandemic better than WWE. Neither has been perfect, so, don't at me. But, AEW did actually stop, even though they had weekly TV. They filmed a whole bunch of it in, I think, 6 weeks of it in one day. or 2 days maybe, and then put that to air so that the performers could go home during, the really tight lockdown when people didn't know what was going on. And now, as we've worked out, you can have bubbles, you can have, actually none of these guys have bubbles, but that's what sporting teams are doing. But you can have controls in place where you can make it relatively safe and you can mitigate the risks. And I think AEW probably handled it a little bit better, but honestly, I don't think people have voted for AEW because of that. That may be a minorly contributing factor. The reason I voted for AEW, and as I said, I jumped from New Japan to voting for AEW, is because of the booking consistency that we've seen, and the way they've told consistent stories up and down the card all across the year. So that's why I voted for AEW, and I think that's the major reason people love it, and that's why they voted for it.
Yeah, I personally also jumped. New Japan's still my number one. I'm still most invested in them. That's not changed. But I voted for AEW because I felt over the course of this year they were the most consistent. They managed to build up the stars the best, continue their long-term stories the best out of all the promotions. It's not that. It's for me. It wasn't that complicated a vote. Who for me did the best overall the course of the year. And for me, the big difference is the level of detail outside of main event. Like every single wrestler in AEW gets that kind of attention and care compared to WWE, where the main event's killing it for both the women and the men. You try and watch the mid card of Raw. Try and do it for 2 months straight, and I bet you by the end of the 2 months you're sick and tired of the mid card. As in, that's kind of my case in point. Into the product itself, Dynamite is a joy to watch every week, whilst every WWE show has got a mid card problem, and it's just a massive lull in the middle. Even if the matches are good, you're going to see them again for the rest of your life. So it's a bit... Anyway, let's go...
2020 was long enough without repeating matches like that.
Let's go to the final award. The match of the... Not match of the year. The show of the year.
Show of the year.
I can't muck up the last one. Let's do it again. The show of the year. Show of the year, Sam. And it is the Royal Rumble. Ooh, perfect timing given we're going to the Rumble now. And I said earlier...
13.6% of the vote.
So for me, the most telling thing is Royal Rumble won. I think even I voted for the Royal Rumble. Because of the amount of things it hit home, and as well as the title matches also doing really well themselves. Even Reigns, Baron Corbin wasn't like, oh god, this is unbearable. It wasn't like that. No, the feud may have been unbearable. I may have stopped watching. But the match of the Rumble was fine. So it was a... show overall, I thought it was great. It accomplished everything it needed to, got you amped for WrestleMania, which is great to see. Because even in past years, where they've given the correct winners, like the Becky Lynch, Seth Rollins year, both winners, 100% correct. Rumbles themselves, perfectly fine. They're not that great on a rewatch, just because the bulk of the Rumbles, it's fine. Whilst the entire men's Rumble for me, the entire pacing of it was fantastic. From start to finish. Didn't even mention Edge's return during it. It's just like, it was that well booked as an entire whole that it's like, oh yeah, there was also this insane return that everyone's going crazy for. So can't forget about that. The telling thing for me is outside of the Rumble, every single show here is AEW. And if I'm right, it's the first time no NXT, and I guess first time since you've been running, no New Japan either.
Yep. So just to run down the numbers, Royal Rumble 13.6%, AEW Revolution, which was my vote, 10%, Winter is Coming, 8.7%, Full Gear, 7%, Double or Nothing, 5.9%. And just to sort of, I guess, the way this has worked out is, I guess, the majority of WWE fans have voted for the Royal Rumble, and quite rightly, it's a really good card. As I said, I really enjoyed the Daniel Bryan Fiend match. I really enjoyed, actually, because I wasn't watching week to week, I enjoyed the Roman Reigns Baron Corbin match. I thought that was fun. But people who'd been subjected to that feud week in, week out probably didn't have as much fun. And, the Becky Lynch Asuka match, I thought the women's Royal Rumble was all right as well. That was an incredibly enjoyable card. And if I was to pick a WWE card, it would be that or TLC for myself. But yeah, look, AEW picked up 6 of the top 10. So that gives you... they kind of split their vote across a number of different great cards. I picked Revolution, and I'll quickly get into why before we wrap things up for the day, for tonight. I picked Revolution. Just the booking going into that was some of the greatest booking you have seen... I've ever seen in week-to-week television. I haven't been a fan as long as most people who are probably listening, but the week-to-week booking of that show leading up to it was incredible, and then the actual card was just so good. You know, you had the match between Chris Jericho and Moxley headlining it, that tag match that we spoke about. We had Sammy Guevara and Darby Allin, just an incredible mid-card match. That was just such a moment, and it's so sad. You know, that was literally, I think, a week before everyone went into lockdown, and AEW lost a lot. AEW had a great year, but after that, the feeling in Revolution, in that crowd, after watching that show, was just like, these guys are ready to take on the world. It felt like a revolution. And, you know, it's sad to see we didn't get that. They had an amazing year, but that was just such a special show. And I would rate it up with the original Double or Nothing as their best ever shows. Yeah, look, as we've said, Royal Rumble, absolutely the rightful winner here, but, you know, my personal pick was AEW Revolution. If I had to pick outside of AEW or WWE, it would be Night 2 of Wrestle Kingdom from 2020.
I mean, Royal Rumble and Revolution are my two most rewatched pay-per-views from this year. If anything, they're the only two. Until after I've watched Wrestle Kingdom this past week, they were like the only two I'd gone back and rewatched over 2020. And for me, like, the amount of new ideas in terms of the production and the crowd and things for Revolution was just great. Giving the big entrances for Jericho,
the Watchers.
Oh yeah, the Watchers, all the people in the crowd.
Oh yeah, they had a choir there.
Yeah, for the Chris Jericho's entrance, that was amazing. Just that. The fact that it was somebody who'd recorded themselves doing it, and then the people became so enamoured that they actually brought her for the show. That was amazing. Like one of the last like big crowd moments, really. Like WWE's last crowd show was Elimination Chamber. Not exactly winning me over that one. But with AEW, of course, the longer kind of gaps between them really does help. And Revolution, they brought a lot of unique ideas. It's a shame we didn't get to see any of them built up upon for the final kind of run of the year. But yeah, hopefully when they come back, we'll get something. But of course, by massive assumption, you're going to get like big percentages. Only going to get percentages of crowds allowed back in, and it'll be slowly over the course of years. Things are like, if not months, then years. Slowly, percentages increased. So it might not get a massive. We'll probably see innovation, but not on that level that we saw at Revolution for a little while, which sucks because that was a really cool visual, really cool atmosphere, and it's amped afterwards as well. Royal Rumble was like WWE's kind of peak era of Royal Rumble. The atmosphere they've been wanting this entire time, they got with Drew McIntyre. The whole baseball field covered with people jumping and cheering. The
stadium looked amazing.
Such an amazing visual. Because Becky Lynch was a cheerable moment, but the crowd, because the Rumble itself wasn't that amazing till that point. Same with Seth Rollins. You didn't really get that emotion at that incredible level. You got it at a great level, like an amazing level, but Drew McIntyre was something else. Like, I think Edge helped that, like, really woke up the crowd, and then when Drew McIntyre ended up winning, eliminating Roman Reigns, they were all going crazy. For me, yes, that is the one I voted for. Even though I've banged on about AEW easily being my brand of the year, I still put Royal Rumble as my favourite show. It's just really, really great stuff. And yeah, that brings us to the end of some happy, positive.
We made it.
Yeah, we did it.
Yeah.
These are always quite long to get through these. It's just the sheer amount of words, and you can see why Sam likes the idea of, maybe not splitting up into different sexes, different whatever, just because the length of these wars would be. But we're not quite keeping.
No one would vote.
Yeah, it's not quite keeping it strong style, but we've put in a good shift. We've done a good shift. It's more Hobbit than Lord of the Rings. A decent one.
Please don't compare us to those movies.
For me, Lord of the Rings is a Christmas film. I watch it every single Christmas, or at least I try to. I don't think I've ever finished them. I mean to. I made it to 2 Towers this time. That's not a great one from him.
We're wildly off in the mud, but way that I watch them is because we've got the extended edition, which is the only way to watch it. And they're on 2 discs, so you watch 1 disc each night, and you've got 6 nights watching. It's perfect because they're like 2 hours, so it's like a great length. You can sit down with the wife, have a drink or two, but you're not staying up till absurd night. You know, like tonight, for example, you're not staying up to an absurd absurd hour. It's only 10:30. It's not too absurd, but still. Anyway, look, Im, thank you so much for doing this with me. I love these awards. I love coming on and talking about them. I love seeing it as people vote in, because, you know, me and Imp and the writing crew at Wrestling Headlines, we've got our own opinions, and we're stuck in our little Twitter bubble. And, you know, when you get 700 votes, you sometimes get very different opinions to what what you've personally experienced or think. And it's good to see that, because you know, it's good to have your reality checked every now and again. But I just love being positive about wrestling, and I love coming in and celebrating the greatness of wrestling. And 2020, you know, it had a lot of challenges, but there was a lot of really good stuff in wrestling in 2020 as well. And, you know, it's great to chat about this. And, you know, we've got this tournament on down in the Collins Forum, and it just so happens, you know, that the first topic is favourite match. So, you know, you can talk about your favourite match from 2020 if you want. Go write a column about it. Join in the fun. 5 rounds, you know, write 5 columns. See if you like it. You don't, see you later. You know, write a crap column and I'll eliminate you. It's last man standing. But, you know, if you're good, you'll write 5 columns. You'll see, and you'll see how much fun it is. You know, in all seriousness, thank you very much for coming along in.
Also say, yes, Gareth, you have missed you've missed the Wrestling Headlines Emmy Awards, and because of YouTube you now have to wait hours.
Missed everything, Gareth.
We're signing off. And of course you've got to wait hours for it to process, because YouTube. Hey. So I guess have fun tomorrow. I don't know when this will process. It's a long one. Again, thanks if you've watched the entire thing. Kudos and thank you, and also you're crazy. For everyone who voted as well, thank you very, very much. Or if you even, in terms of traffic, if you even clicked on the page for the voting but then didn't vote, you still count as a click on the page. Thank you for helping Wrestling Headlines. But also, we'll be back next year to do this, all live impending. But also, you can follow us on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at the Damn Implicat. You can follow Sam on Twitter at Sir_Samuel. Their Twitter handles have been underneath us the entire time as we've been talking, so probably didn't need me to write it. Yes, they are not level and things. As Sam knows, I was busy boy before we went live, moving everything about as I realised the sizes didn't fit on the screen. It's like, oh crap. Hopefully you can put up.
I had to reinstall Skype to get onto this thing.
Like technical issues. But it'll be, Gareth will slap us on later whilst playing Football Manager if we've processed. But yeah, I put up a podcast version as well, so hopefully that gets uploaded by some point as well. Anyway, and
I'll be releasing the column version of this announcement that doesn't go for 3 hours. Sometime tomorrow, probably, when I've finished writing it.
And you can. I've been streaming on Twitch at the Implications with the second S. I've been playing Yakuza 0 right now in a Japanese mood. Can you guess why? I love those games. I spent my Tuesday dancing and singing karaoke with it. Mate, I love that game so much. But if you want to check me out on Twitch, I'm currently streaming that. I was meant to stream yesterday, but I was knackered from the NXT review, which is also up, and I knew I had this morning, so probably shouldn't stream for 2 hours on a Japanese game where I'm going to have to read out words. So I thought I'd wait until Monday again to stream. I think I might be streaming tonight over on the Wrestling Shorts Twitch with Ash from Wrestling Shorts. Maybe playing FIFA or something, so you can check me out there. But also, in terms of wrestling, you've got the column of this going up later today, and you've got me returning on Tuesday for the WWE Raw review. My first Raw of the year. How is it going to be?
I don't know how you do it, mate.
Genuinely, some weeks I've had to... for me, the biggest mental struggle was when we were covering G1 Climax, and I was doing the WWE stuff at the same time. And during that period, I generally had to, at times, pause it and leave. And I had to calm down, type of thing. Not much gets me in wrestling, but when I was tired as it was, then the shows were of that quality. I'm like, if I wasn't doing this review, I would have turned this off and left. But no, doing a review, I'm going to go away, calm down and come back. So sometimes it's a mental struggle. It's the best way to put it. We'll see. We're in another New Japan Come Down era, so maybe it'll be... I've described it before. It's the massive whiplash you get from Wrestle Kingdom to second Raw of the year. It's like, it's bit of a whiplash. It's not the first week of the year. I tell you that. Yeah, we'll see. How will they do Goldberg, Drew McIntyre? Don't know, because I didn't watch the Legend show. So we'll see.
Oh,
yeah, but yeah.
don't even talk to me about that. I'd forgotten it was happening for a little while. So
maybe Drew beats him. It's a positive show. We'll stay positive. They just simply use him to put Drew over. They use what we complimented AEW for. They'll learn their lessons from their competition. Anyway, I'll be back on Tuesday at midnight to review that. So I'll do it the day after because I'm English. I'm not staying up to watch Raw. Come on. But I will be tuning in to watch that later. Also, again, massive thanks for SirSam as well. We've thanked each other now. We get 50-50 respect. We'll be back next year for this. And often I'll hit up Sam for a New Japan thing at some point during the year. Obviously, this year, not the normal list of years. So it's been a whole year since we've seen Sam. But it's not getting normal anytime soon either. So we'll have to wait and see. When's the next time you'll see Sam? We'll find out. It could be a year ago.
I'll be writing.
Yeah, check out his columns. Check out all the
I've
other
always
columns
got-
as well.
I've always got plans to do a podcast or something, but I don't know. I've got a kid, man. I couldn't keep up your schedule. I just write when I've got time. A young butts it sometimes. I do it on my phone, right during my lunch break on my phone.
I will say that my goal for this year is because doing all this video stuff, getting this all set up, trying to do this means I've invested time in this. I've completely fallen off with my columns, and I've written, like, aside from the G1 series, apart from the New Japan Cup series, my aim, because this time last year I was busting them out at an insane rate.
I'm carrying you in.
Yeah, so this time last year was when I was doing the reviews of every show of the week, and I was putting them out every single week, and now it's just like I don't have the time for that. So my aim this year is to, in some form, get back more into the column writing side. I realised as I was writing that when I did the NXT columns, I do really miss this. It's just, when am I going to do it? Because of real life. But hopefully 2021 dies down, so I've actually got a weekend again, and I can do normal things, like actually write a column. We'll wait and see. But do check out the other columnists as well. Absolutely nailing it right now currently. Yep. And there is the tournament as well in the forums. Also, follow us both on Twitter. Follow me on Twitch. Follow Sam's got a Twitch, but he's not currently streaming on it. Again, he's got life. That life thing that hits you. Twitch is an investment. You need time to be able to do that. Also, thank you for liking, subscribing, following this show, even just any form of engagement as well. Whatever you do on the podcasting, like the 5 stars on the Apple or whatever it is. And thank you for even if you clicked an emoji on the Wrestling Headlines website, we appreciate it all. No one clicks the emojis, like 5 people.
Even if you come at me with a bad faith take.
Even if you're commenting on the clear AEW bias on this show, even if on this website, or sometimes,
I can always screenshot you and put you on my Twitter and have a laugh about you with my mates.
And if it's not a public one, we will talk about it in the actual kind of DM we've got for the writers.
There's some DMs that we.
So anyway, I think we've plugged everything there is to plug. So thank you for listening. And thank you to Sam. And with that, it's the end of another year, an end of another award with a positive smile on our faces. So with that, I bid you adieu, and Sam bids you...
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Hooroo.
To everybody.
Didn't quite pick my. I didn't get my cue then. Sorry.
There's no better way to sign us off. So goodbye.
Bye-bye.